Chapter 1. The Mysterious Invitation. The rain fell in relentless sheets over London, cloaking the city in a grey shroud that seemed to muffle even the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and the distant hum of motor-cars. In his impeccably neat apartment at 56B Whitehaven Mansions, Hercule Poirot sat by the fire, his small, precise hands folded over a cup of steaming tisane. The warmth of the drink did little to dispel the chill that had settled into his bones, not from the weather, but from the peculiar letter that lay open on the table before him. It had arrived that morning, delivered by a sodden postman, whose expression suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. The envelope was of fine quality, cream-coloured and heavy, with Poirot's name and address written in a bold, elegant hand. There was no return address, no hint of the sender's identity, save for a wax seal on the back, imprinted with a curious symbol, a thorny vine curled around a single black rose. Poirot, ever meticulous, had examined the seal under his magnifying glass, noting its craftsmanship. It was no common mark. The letter itself was brief, yet it carried an air of command that intrigued him. Dear Monsieur Poirot, your reputation as a man of unparalleled deductive skill precedes you. I find myself in need of such a mind to unravel, a matter of great delicacy and urgency. You are cordially invited to Blackthorn Manor, near the village of Thornwick, this coming Saturday at 6 o'clock in the evening. A car will be sent to collect you from the station. Discretion is paramount, and I trust you will come alone. Yours sincerely, a friend. Poirot's moustache twitched as he reread the words. A friend, he murmured, his green eyes narrowing. Mon Dieu, how very theatrical, and yet how very vague. He disliked vagueness. It was an affront to his love of order and method. Who was this friend? Why the secrecy? And what matter could be so delicate that it required his presence at a remote manor house, far from the comforts of London? He had shown the letter to his faithful companion, Captain Arthur Hastings, who had been visiting that morning. Hastings, with his characteristic enthusiasm, had been immediately captivated. Sounds like a proper mystery, Poirot. A manor house, a cryptic letter. Why, it's straight out of a novel. You must go. Poirot had raised an eyebrow. Must, Hastings? No, no. Hercule Poirot does not leap into the unknown without consideration. This letter, it is too convenient. It flatters, it entices, but it reveals nothing. Perhaps it is a trap. A trap. Hastings had looked sceptical. Who would want to trap you? You're not exactly the sort to have enemies lurking in the shadows. Poirot's lips had curved into a faint smile. My friend, when one has solved as many crimes as Poirot, one does not lack for enemies. The guilty, they do not forget. Now, alone in his apartment, Poirot sipped his tisane and considered his options. He could ignore the letter, of course. He was under no obligation to answer such a summons. Yet the mystery of it tugged at him, like a loose thread in an otherwise perfect tapestry. Who had written it? What was the nature of this matter of great delicacy? And why Blackthorn Manor, a place he had never heard of until today? He rose, his small frame moving with the precision of a man who valued appearances as much as intellect. Crossing to his desk, he retrieved a map of England and spread it out under the light of a green-shaded lamp. Thornwick, he discovered, was a small village in the heart of the Cotswolds, surrounded by rolling hills and dense woods. Blackthorn Manor was not marked, but a quick consultation of his address book revealed no notable families or scandals associated with the area. This only deepened the enigma. By the time the clock struck 8, Poirot had made his decision. He would go, not out of curiosity alone, though he admitted to a certain piqued interest, but because he sensed something deeper at play. The letter's tone, its careful wording, suggested a mind that was both cunning and desperate. Such minds, Poirot knew, were often at the heart of the most intriguing cases. The next 2 days passed in a flurry of preparation. Poirot instructed his valet, George, to pack a suitcase with his finest suits, ensuring that his patent leather shoes were polished to a mirror shine. He telephoned Hastings, informing him of his decision and extracting a promise to join him in Thornwick the following week, should the situation warrant it. "But Poirot," Hastings had protested, "why not let me come now? It sounds like you might need me." "Patience, mon ami," Poirot had replied. "First, Poirot will assess the terrain. If there is danger, or indeed a case worthy of our talents, you shall be summoned." On Saturday morning, Poirot boarded the train to Thornwick. The journey was uneventful, the countryside slipping past in a blur of green fields and stone walls. He occupied himself with a slim volume of French poetry, though his mind kept drifting back to the letter. The wax seal, the thorny vine, the black rose, they were symbols, surely, but of what? A family crest, a secret society, or merely the affectation of an eccentric mind? At Thornwick Station, a small windswept platform greeted him. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp, earth and wood smoke. As promised, a car awaited, a sleek black Rolls-Royce, its driver a taciturn man in a grey uniform. He introduced himself as Mr. Grayson, the Manor's chauffeur, and said little else as he loaded Poirot's suitcase into the boot. The drive to Blackthorn Manor took them through narrow lanes lined with ancient oaks, their branches forming a tunnel that dappled the road with shadow. Poirot noted the isolation of the area. They passed no other vehicles, no houses, only the occasional glimpse of a distant farmhouse. At last, the car turned onto a gravel drive, and the manor came into view. Blackthorn Manor was a magnificent, if somewhat foreboding structure. Built of weathered grey stone, it rose 3 stories high, its many windows glinting like eyes in the fading light. Ivy clung to its walls, and the surrounding gardens, though well kept, had an air of wildness, as though nature was slowly reclaiming the land. At the centre of the circular drive stood a fountain, its basin filled with dark water that reflected the overcast sky. As the car pulled to a stop, the front door of the manor opened, and a figure emerged, a woman, tall and elegant, dressed in a deep green gown that seemed almost out of place in the rural setting. Her hair, a rich auburn, was swept up in an intricate style, and her eyes, when they met Poirot's, were sharp and assessing. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice smooth but with an undercurrent of tension, "I am Lady Eleanor Blackthorn. Welcome to my home." Poirot bowed, his moustache woven by a mind both cunning and desperate. He paced slowly, his words deliberate. The ledger revealed Alistair's blackmail, a motive for murder. The book in the vault, with its list of names, V, L, E, B, C, D, L, M, pointed to betrayal. Lucy Marsden, as L, M, was marked with a black rose, a sign of her treachery. Her feminine voice, heard in the attic, her graceful movements, observed by Mademoiselle Duval, and her small hands, matching the handprint, confirmed her identity. But it was her desperation, stealing the book, attacking Mademoiselle Duval, falling for the decoy Thornheart, that betrayed her. Sir Reginald, his voice gruff but respectful, spoke. "Damned clever, Poirot. But what is about the Thornheart? Is it really what Alistair thought? A gem that controls minds?" Poirot's smile was faint. "No, Sir Reginald. The Thornheart is a gem, yes, but its power is myth. amplified by Alistair's obsession. The book described rituals, but they were fantasies, born of his paranoia. The true power was knowledge, the ledger, the book, the secrets they held. Lucy sought to control them, or destroy them, to protect her past. Miss Duval, her voice steady, asked, "And Margaret, why did she have to die?" Poirot's expression softened. Margaret, poor soul, was curious. She found the ledger, or perhaps the book, and recognized Lucy's true identity. Lucy, as Lizzie, had access to every room, every secret. She killed Margaret to silence her, using the manor's passages to move unseen. The black roses, the lavender, they were her signatures, a taunt to those who dared seek the truth. Dr. Whitmore, his curiosity undimmed, leaned forward. The lavender vault. Was there more inside? The book was stolen, but was that all? Poirot nodded. A fine question, Doctor. The vault held the book, yes, but also the mechanism of the trap, the mist, the gate. It was Alistair's design, a final defense for his secrets. Lucy knew it, used it to her advantage. But the vault is empty now. Its purpose served. The truth is here, in this room, in our understanding. Langston, his voice low, spoke for the first time. You suspected me, Poirot. VL, my initials. Why clear me now? Poirot's gaze was piercing. Monsieur Langston, you were a suspect, oui. Your name in the ledger, your cold pragmatism, your presence at every key moment. They pointed to you, but the handprint, the voice, the grace, they did not fit. You are a man of secrets, perhaps, but not the shadow. Lucy's motive was personal. Betrayal, love, revenge. Yours, if any, was profit, and there was no profit in Margaret's death. Langston's smile returned, thin but genuine. Fair enough, Poirot. You're sharper than I gave you credit for. Poirot turned to Lady Eleanor, his tone gentle but firm. Madame, you played a dangerous game, inviting these guests to stir the past. You suspected Alistair was poisoned, yet you hid this. Why? Lady Eleanor's eyes welled with tears. I wasn't sure, Monsieur Poirot. Alistair's death was ruled natural, but I found notes, hints of poison. I invited them, Reginald, Clara, Henry, Victor, to force the truth, to see who would break. I didn't know Lucy was here, hiding as Lizzie. I thought it was one of them. Poirot nodded, his expression softening. You sought justice, madame, but justice is a blade that cuts both ways. Your silence endangered us, but it also drew the shadow out. For that, you have my gratitude. He produced the thorn heart, holding it aloft, its facets catching the dawn's light. This gem, mes amis, is no longer a curse. It will be given to the authorities, along with the ledger and what remains of the book, reconstructed by Dr. Whitmore's notes. The manor's secrets are unveiled, and its shadows dispelled. Sir Reginald clapped a hand on Poirot's shoulder. A rare gesture. By Jove, Poirot, you're a marvel. Never seen anything like it. What'll you do now? Poirot's smile was serene. Return to London, Sir Reginald, to my tisane and my quiet life, until the next mystery calls. But first, I shall ensure Mademoiselle Marston faces justice. The police will arrive soon, and her tale will end in a courtroom, not a manor. Miss Duval rose, her voice soft but sincere. Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. You saved my life and more. I'll never forget this. Poirot bowed, his moustache quivering. Mademoiselle, it is the duty of Hercule Poirot to protect, to uncover. You owe me nothing but your courage, which you have shown. As the group dispersed, preparing for the police's arrival, Poirot lingered, his gaze on the window, where the manor's gardens stretched toward the maze. The thorny vine, the black rose, the lavender. They were symbols of a past now laid bare. He thought of Alistair, driven to madness by his obsession, of Lucy, consumed by her betrayal, of Margaret, an innocent caught in their web. The truth was unveiled, but its cost was heavy. He stepped into the foyer, where Grayson awaited, his face unreadable. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, "you serve this house well, yet you saw nothing of Lucy's true nature. Curious, no?" Grayson's eyes met his, steady but guarded. "I see what needs seeing, sir. The manor keeps its own counsel." Poirot nodded, filing away the cryptic response. Grayson was no killer, but he was a man of secrets, perhaps tied to the manor's deeper history, another mystery for another day. As the police arrived, their motorcars crunching on the gravel drive, Poirot handed over the Thornheart, the ledger, and his detailed account of the case. Lucy Marsden, defiant to the end, was led away, her eyes burning with a hatred that chilled even Poirot. The guests, their roles in the drama concluded, prepared to depart, their lives forever marked by Blackthorn Manor. Poirot stood on the manor's steps, the morning breeze ruffling his impeccable suit. The case was closed, the truth unveiled, but the manor's shadows lingered in his mind, a reminder of the fragility of trust and the power of secrets. He turned to Lady Eleanor, who joined him, her face softened by gratitude. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, "this house is free now, thanks to you. Will you return one day?" Poirot's smile was gentle. "Perhaps, madam, if the little grey cells demand it. But for now, I leave you to your peace." As he boarded the car to Thornwick Station, Poirot glanced back at the manor, its grey, stones gleaming in the dawn. The mystery of the forgotten Poirot story was solved, its truth unveiled, and Hercule Poirot, ever the master of order, drove into the light, ready for whatever puzzle awaited next. A soft footstep echoed from the passage, deliberate and light. A figure emerged, cloaked, hooded, moving with the grace Miss Duval had described. They approached the altar, their gloved hand reaching for the Thornheart. Poirot stepped from the shadows, his voice cutting through the silence. "Stop, madame. Or should I say, Mademoiselle Lucy Marsden?" The figure froze, their hand inches from the gem. A low laugh, feminine but cold, filled the chamber. "Clever Poirot," they said, their voice no longer distorted, but too late. They threw back their hood, revealing a face that stunned the group. It was not Lady Eleanor, nor Miss Duval, but Lizzie, the maid, her youthful features twisted with a malice that belied her meek demeanour. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, locked on Poirot. "You thought you had me, didn't you? But I've been playing this game longer than you." Lady Eleanor gasped, her voice breaking. "Lizzie! But you're just a maid." Lizzie's laugh was bitter. "A maid? Oh, Eleanor, you're as blind as Alistair was. I'm Lucy Marsden, his scholar, his lover, his betrayer. I took the funds, yes, but he deserved it. He used me, then cast me aside when I questioned his madness. I hid, changed my name, but I never left. This manor, its secrets, they're mine." Poirot's voice was calm, but his eyes were steel. "And Margaret? She found the ledger, didn't she? Knew you were more than a maid?" Lizzie's smile was cruel. "She was nosy, like you. She found the book, pieced it together. I had to silence her. The Thornheart, the vault, it's all mine, Poirot. With it, I can control anyone, just as Alistair dreamed." Langston stepped forward, his voice low. "You're mad, Lizzie. The gem's a myth, a delusion." "Mad? Lizzie snarled, producing a small blade, its handle engraved with a thorny vine. "I'm free. Alistair poisoned himself with his obsession, but I survived. Now, hand over the gem, Poirot, or I'll finish what I started with Clara." Poirot raised a hand, his voice steady. "No, Mademoiselle Marsden, you have played well, but the game is over. The handprint, the lavender, the roses, they all pointed to you. Your mistake was the book. You stole it, but I memorized its names. L.M. Lucy Marsden, marked with a black rose. You killed Margaret, attacked Mademoiselle Duval, and now you stand exposed." Lizzie lunged, her blade flashing, but Poirot was ready. He sidestepped, and Sir Reginald, roaring, tackled her, pinning her to the ground. Grayson secured her wrists with a rope from his belt, and the group surrounded her, their shock giving way to relief. Poirot retrieved the thorn heart, holding it aloft. "The gem is no myth, but its power is knowledge, not magic. Alistair's book revealed your betrayal, Mademoiselle Marsden, and your fear of exposure drove you to murder. The lavender vault is empty now, its secrets laid bare." Lizzie struggled, her eyes blazing. "You think you've won, Poirot? The manor keeps its secrets. You'll never know them all." Poirot's smile was faint. "Perhaps, mademoiselle, but I know enough. The shadow is caught, and justice will follow." As Grayson led Lizzie away, to be held until the police arrived, Poirot turned to the group, his voice soft but firm. "The confrontation is over, mes amis, but the truth remains. The thorn heart will be secured, the ledger and book handed to the authorities. The past is no longer hidden." Lady Eleanor, tears streaming, whispered, "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. You've ended our curse." Poirot bowed, his moustache quivering. "No, madame. I have only revealed it. The rest is for you to heal." The night was still, the manor's shadows retreating as dawn approached. The final confrontation had unmasked the killer, but Poirot knew the echoes of Blackthorn's secrets would linger, a testament to the power of his little grey cells. Chapter 13. The truth unveiled, the dawn broke over Blackthorn Manor with a tentative golden light, as if the sun itself were hesitant to illuminate the secrets that had festered within its walls. The final confrontation in the lavender vault had unmasked Lucy Marsden, the shadow who had haunted the manor, driven by a decades-old betrayal, to murder Margaret and terrorize the guests. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing-room, his small, impeccable figure a beacon of clarity amid the lingering echoes of fear and deceit. The thorn-heart gem, still secure in his waistcoat's hidden pocket, gleamed in his mind as a symbol of the truth he had uncovered. The ledger, the black roses, the lavender scent, all had led to this moment, where the full truth would be unveiled, not just for the guests, but for the manor's tortured legacy. The guests were gathered one last time, their faces a mix of relief, exhaustion, and quiet awe at Poirot's triumph. Lady Eleanor Blackthorn sat by the window, her black dress softened by the morning light, her eyes red-rimmed but steady, as if she had finally found a measure of peace. Sir Reginald Thorn, his bluster restored but tempered, leaned against the fireplace, a faint smile on his weathered face. Miss Clara Duval, her arms still bandaged from the shadow's attack, sat with a newfound strength, her beauty radiant despite the ordeal. Dr. Henry Whitmore, his journal closed for the first time, adjusted his spectacles, his expression one of quiet gratitude. Mr. Victor Langston stood near the door, his cold demeanour softened, though his eyes still held a wary sharpness. Grayson, the chauffeur, was absent, escorting the bound Lucy Marsden to a locked room to await the police, who had been summoned from Thornwick. Poirot clasped his hands behind his back, his green eyes sweeping the room. "Mes amis," he began, his voice calm but resonant. "The shadow has been caught, and the mystery of Blackthorn Manor is solved. Lucy Marston, once a scholar and lover to Lord Alistair Blackthorn, betrayed him 20 years ago, stealing the funds for the Thornhart venture. She hid as Lizzie the maid, biding her time, guarding the manor's secrets. Margaret's discovery of the ledger, or perhaps the book in the lavender vault, threatened her, and so she killed. But the truth, it is never truly buried. Hercule Poirot has unveiled it, and now we shall lay it bare." Lady Eleanor's voice was soft, almost reverent. "Monsieur Poirot, you have done what I thought impossible. You've ended the curse on this house. But how did you know it was Lizzie, Lucy?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of his satisfaction. "The little grey cells, madam, they do not rest. Let us reconstruct the puzzle step by step, so that all is clear. The letter that summoned me, with its thorny vine seal, hinted at a secret tied to the Blackthorn family. Margaret's murder, in a hidden chamber with a letter opener bearing the same symbol, was no random act. The black roses, the lavender scent, the delicate handprint, they were threads." Poirot's pulse quickened. Poison, a new piece of the puzzle. His little grey cells churned, connecting the dots. The feminine voice, the delicate handprint, the lavender, the name L.M. The killer was close, their motive laid bare, but their face remained hidden. The trap had failed to catch them, but it had tightened the noose. The lavender vault's secrets were within reach, and Poirot was ready to make his final move. Chapter 12. The Final Confrontation. The night enveloped Blackthorn Manor in a shroud of silence, broken only by the distant howl of the wind and the faint creak of its ancient timbers. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing-room, his small, precise figure a beacon of resolve amid the palpable fear that gripped the guests. The trap in the old library had failed to capture the shadow, but it had exposed their desperation, their willingness to strike at Miss Clara Duval and steal what they believed was the Thornhart. The real gem, still hidden in Poirot's waistcoat, was his trump card, and he intended to use it to force the killer into the open. The lavender vault, the ledger, the black roses, and the name L.M. all pointed to a motive rooted in betrayal and power. Tonight, Poirot's little grey cells would orchestrate the final confrontation. The guests were assembled, their faces etched with exhaustion and dread. Lady Eleanor Blackthorn sat by the fire, her black dress a stark contrast to her pale, drawn face, her eyes flickering with a mix of guilt and determination. Sir Reginald Thorne, his military bravado replaced by a grim resolve, stood near the door, his hands clenched. Miss Duval, her arm bandaged from the shadow's attack, sat with a defiant tilt to her chin, though her eyes betrayed her fear. Dr. Henry Whitmore, his journal now a tattered relic, clutched it tightly, his spectacles slipping down his nose. Mr. Victor Langston leaned against the wall, his cold demeanour cracked, his gaze sharp and calculating. Grayson, the chauffeur, stood silently in the corner, his stoic presence a quiet puzzle Poirot had yet to fully solve. Poirot paced slowly, his patent leather shoes silent on the carpet, his hands clasped behind his back. "Mes amis," he began, his voice a steady anchor in the storm of suspicion, "we have danced with the shadow long enough. They have struck, they have taunted, but they have not won. The Thornhart, which they believe they possess, remains with me. The book from the lavender vault, stolen in their trap, revealed names, VL, EB, CD, and LM, marked with a black rose. The motive is clear. To protect a secret from 20 years ago. A betrayal that cost Lord Alistair his fortune, and perhaps his life. Tonight we end this game." Lady Eleanor's voice trembled. "Monsieur Poirot, you speak of betrayal. But how can we end it when the killer is still free? They've outwitted us at every turn." Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of his unwavering confidence. "Outwitted, madame? No. The shadow is clever, but they are desperate. They struck Mademoiselle Duval, believing they took the thorn heart, but they hold only an empty pouch. Their mistake is our opportunity. We shall return to the lavender vault, where the final truth lies, and we shall draw them out. But first, we must confront the lies among us." Sir Reginald's face reddened. "Lies? You've been pointing fingers all along. Poirot, Langston, Eleanor, even me. If you know who it is, name them and be done with it." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Patience, Sir Reginald. To name the killer now would spoil the denouement, and Hercule Poirot does not spoil. But I shall share what my little grey cells have concluded. The shadow is someone intimate with the Blackthorn legacy. Its passages, its symbols, its secrets. The feminine voice in the attic, the delicate handprint, the lavender scent. They suggest a woman or a man skilled in deception. The name O.M., marked with a black rose, is our key. Lizzie the maid has small hands, but so does another, less obvious." He turned to the group, his gaze sweeping over them. "Let us consider the motives. Monsieur Langston, your name, V.L., appears in the ledger, tied to a debt of silence. You were Alistair's partner, suspected of stealing the Thornheart funds. Madame Blackthorn, E.B., you were entrusted with the gem, yet you claim ignorance. Mademoiselle Duval, C.D., you were his confidant, perhaps more. Sir Reginald, you lost a fortune, a motive for revenge. Dr. Whitmore, you aided Alistair's research, privy to his obsessions. And Grayson, you know the manor's secrets better than most. But L.M., who is L.M.? Dr. Whitmore, his voice shaky, spoke up. The journal. It mentions a Lucy Marston, a scholar who worked with Alistair briefly. She vanished after the theft, rumoured to have betrayed him. Could L.M. be her? Poirot's pulse quickened. Lucy Marsden, a name from the past, yet perhaps not so distant. We shall test this theory, but first we return to the vault. The book was stolen, but the vault itself holds more, proof of the betrayal and the killer's identity. He outlined his plan, a return to the lavender vault, with the thorn heart as bait. "I shall place the gem on the altar," he said, "and we shall wait, hidden, for the shadow to come. They believe they have the book, but they need the gem to complete their power, or to destroy it. Monsieur Grayson, Sir Reginald, you will guard the passage's entrance. Dr. Whitmore, Mademoiselle Duval, you will remain in the vault, hidden, behind the altar. Madame, Monsieur Langston, you will assist me in watching from the shadows." Langston's eyes narrowed. "You trust us to watch, Poirot? After all your accusations?" "I trust no one, Monsieur Langston," Poirot replied, his voice sharp. "But I trust my eyes, and they will be on you." The group moved to the cellars, the air growing colder and heavier with lavender as they descended. The iron door to the vault stood open, its lock still bearing the scratches of the killer's pick. The chamber was as they had left it. The black rose mosaic, the stone altar, the lingering mist of the trap. Poirot placed the thorn heart on the altar, its blood-red facets glinting in the lantern's light, and directed the group to their positions. Grayson and Sir Reginald took the entrance. Whitmore and Duval crouched behind the altar, and Poirot, Lady Eleanor, and Langston concealed themselves in the chamber's shadowed alcoves. The wait was agonizing, the silence broken only by the faint drip of water and the group's uneven breaths. Poirot's senses were on high alert, his mind replaying every clue. The feminine laugh, the handprint, the name L.M., and Lady Eleanor's revelation that Alistair was poisoned. The pieces were aligning, but the final picture was still obscured. Then, worn thin, "Enough riddles, Poirot. You say the killer's here among us. Name them, or stop wasting our time." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Patience, Sir Reginald. To name the killer now would be premature, like picking a fruit before it ripens. But I shall share what my little grey cells have deduced. The killer is tied to the theft of 20 years ago, when the Thornhart venture collapsed. The ledger and book name suspects V.L., perhaps Monsieur Langston, E.B., perhaps Madame Blackthorne, others less clear. The motive is power, or the fear of its loss. Margaret died because she knew of the book, or the gem. The shadow seeks to control the past, to hide their betrayal. Langston's voice was sharp, his composure cracking. "You keep pointing to me, Poirot, but you've no proof. V.L. could be anyone. Victor Langston, Vincent Lyle, even a woman like Victoria. You're grasping at shadows." Poirot's smile was faint but piercing. "Shadows, Monsieur Langston? None. I see clearly. The handprint in the cellar, delicate and lavender-dusted, suggests a woman, or a man with small hands. The voice in the attic, feminine. The grace Miss Duval observed, dancer-like. These are not shadows, but facts, and you, monsieur, were quick to dismiss the book's importance, yet your name appears marked with a black rose." Langston's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Poirot turned to the group, his voice rising. "We shall lure the killer with the Thornhart. I propose a gathering tonight in the old library where Margaret was found. I shall display the gem, under guard, and we shall watch. The shadow will come, unable to resist, and we shall catch them." Miss Duval's voice trembled. "Display it, but they'll try to kill you, Monsieur Poirot. They've already tried once, in the attic." "Précisément, mademoiselle," Poirot said. "They failed then, and they will fail again. Hercule Poirot is not so easily dispatched. Monsieur Grayson, Sir Reginald, you will guard the library's entrances. Dr. Whitmore, prepare a list of the book's names from memory. Madame, Mademoiselle Duval, I'm sure the staff are accounted for. Monsieur Langston, you will assist me in setting the stage." The group nodded, their fear tempered by Poirot's certainty. As they dispersed to prepare, Poirot lingered, his mind racing. The trap was risky, but necessary. The killer's desperation was their weakness, and the Thornhart was the bait they could not ignore. He recalled the note from Lizzie. "Trust no one," and the feminine voice in the attic. Lady Eleanor, with her evasions, was a prime suspect, but Langston's cold pragmatism and Grayson's access to the manor's secrets were equally compelling. Miss Duval's sighting of a cloaked woman added complexity. Could she be deflecting suspicion, or was she truly a victim? In the old library, Poirot arranged the scene with care. The Thornhart, still in its velvet pouch, was placed on a small table, surrounded by candles to draw the eye. Sir Reginald and Grayson took their posts at the doors, their faces grim. Dr. Whitmore sat in a corner, scribbling his list, while Lady Eleanor and Miss Duval stood near the fireplace, their eyes darting to the shadows. Langston, at Poirot's side, adjusted the candles, his movements precise, but his silence heavy. The clock struck 9. Poirot addressed the group, his voice low but clear. "The shadow watches, mes amis, but tonight we watch them. The Thornhart is here, a prize they cannot resist. Be vigilant, for they will strike when they believe us vulnerable." The room fell silent, the only sound the crackle of the fire and the distant howl of the wind outside. Minutes stretched into an hour, the tension palpable. Poirot's eyes never left the gem, but his senses were attuned to every movement, every breath. Then a faint creak echoed from the bookshelves, followed by a soft thud, like a book falling. "Stay where you are," Poirot whispered, moving toward the sound. He reached the shelves, noting a gap where a book had been dislodged. Behind it was a hidden panel, slightly ajar, its edge marked with a thorny vine. Before he could open it, a gust of air extinguished the candles, plunging the room into darkness. A scream, Miss Duval's, pierced the silence, followed by a scuffle. Poirot's torch flickered on, revealing chaos. The Thorn-Heart's pouch was gone, the table overturned, and Miss Duval lay on the floor, clutching her arm, blood seeping through her sleeve. "They stabbed me," she gasped. "They took it." Sir Reginald roared, rushing to the door, but it was locked from the outside. Grayson pounded on it, his calm shattered. Poirot knelt beside Miss Duval, examining her wound. Shallow, meant to frighten, not kill. "Courage, mademoiselle," he said, binding her arm with his handkerchief. "The shadow plays, but they have made a mistake." He turned to the panel, forcing it open to reveal a narrow passage, its air thick with lavender. "They fled here," he said, his voice grim. "Monsieur Langston Grayson with me. The rest, stay with Mademoiselle Duval and break that door." Langston hesitated, but Grayson nodded, his crowbar in hand. The passage twisted upward, emerging in the attic, where a single black rose lay on the floor, its petals dusted with lavender pollen. The pouch was there, empty, the Thorn-Heart gone. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, picking up the rose. "They believe they have it, but they are mistaken." He patted his waistcoat, where the real Thorn-Heart remained hidden. "The pouch was a decoy, mes amis. The shadow has revealed themselves, and now we close the net." Back in the drawing-room, Miss Duval's wound was tended, and the group's fear was palpable. Poirot addressed them, his voice commanding. "The killer took the bait, but they took nothing. The Thorn-Heart is safe, and their actions betray them. The feminine grace, the lavender, the rose, they point to one among us, or one we have overlooked. Dr. Whitmore, your list of names, read it." Whitmore, trembling, opened his journal. V.L. Victor Langston, marked with a rose. E.B. Eleanor Blackthorne. C.D. Clara Duval. And L.M. Unknown, but marked with a black rose, tied to the theft. "L.M., Poirot repeated, his eyes scanning the group. "Lizzie the maid, perhaps. Her small hands, her access to the manor. Or another, hidden in plain sight. The motive is power, the power of the Thorn-Heart, or the fear of its exposure. The shadow struck tonight, but they left a trace. Their desperation." He turned to Lady Eleanor. "Madam, you know more than you say. The ledger, the book, your husband's trust. Why did you invite these guests if not to provoke the killer?" Lady Eleanor's eyes welled with tears. "I wanted the truth, Monsieur Poirot. Alistair's death was no accident. He was poisoned, I'm sure of it, by the betrayer. I invited them to force their hand to end this curse, and recently. The air beyond was thick with lavender, stronger than ever, and a faint hum, like distant machinery, echoed from within. "Stay together," Poirot commanded, stepping through the door. The passage sloped downward, its walls lined with ancient bricks, their surfaces etched with faint rose motifs. After a short descent, they emerged into a vast circular chamber, the lavender vault. Its floor was inlaid with a mosaic of a black rose, its petals shimmering with inlaid gems. In the center stood a stone altar, and on it a single object, a leather-bound book, its cover embossed with the thorny vine. Poirot approached, his senses alert. The book was heavy, its pages filled, with diagrams, maps, and cryptic notes in Alistair's hand. It was a blueprint not for blackmail, but for power. A record of the Thornheart's supposed abilities, detailing rituals to bind minds and shape destinies. At its end was a list of names, each marked with a rose. Those who had sought the gem, and those who had betrayed Alistair to claim it. This, Poirot said, holding up the book, is the true treasure. Not gold, but knowledge. Knowledge of power and of treachery. The killer seeks this, to wield it or destroy it. Lady Eleanor's voice was a whisper. Alistair. He believed the Thornheart could control others. He was mad, wasn't he? Not mad, madame, Poirot said. Obsessed. And someone shared that obsession, or feared its exposure. The motive is here, in these names. Before he could read them, a low, chilling laugh echoed from the chamber's shadows, followed by the click of a mechanism. The walls shuddered, and a heavy iron gate slammed shut, trapping them inside. The hum grew louder, and a faint mist, lavender-scented, began to seep from vents in the floor. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, his eyes scanning the room. A trap. The shadow has planned this. Sir Reginald pounded on the gate, his shouts echoing uselessly. Miss Duval clutched Lady Eleanor, her face pale, while Dr. Whitmore stammered, "It's poison, isn't it? The mist." Poirot's mind raced. The mist was not poison. He detected no acrid scent, but a sedative meant to incapacitate them. He examined the altar, noting a small hidden lever beneath its edge. With a quick pull, the mist stopped, and a panel in the wall slid open, revealing a narrow escape tunnel. "Quickly!" Poirot urged, ushering the group through. The tunnel led upward, emerging in the manor's east wing, near the old library. As they caught their breath, Poirot realized the book was gone, snatched in the chaos, likely by the killer. "The shadow is clever," he said, his voice grim. "They used the trap to reclaim the book, to protect their motive. But they have made a mistake. The names I saw, one stood out, marked with a black rose, V.L. Langston's face remained impassive, but his fingers twitched. "You accuse me, Poirot? I've no interest in Alistair's delusions." "Not accused, Monsieur Langston," Poirot said, his eyes locked on him. "Observed. The motive is power, or fear of its loss. You or another sought the Thornheart's secrets, and Margaret died for it." He turned to the group, his voice commanding. "We are close, mes amis. The book is gone, but its contents are in my mind. We shall search the east wing, for the killer is near, and their motive is clear. The shadow seeks to control the past, but Poirot controls the present." As they moved to search, Poirot lingered, his thoughts on the trap. The killer had planned it, but their haste betrayed them. The mist, the gate, the stolen book, they were acts of desperation, not triumph. He recalled the feminine laugh, the delicate handprint, and the name V.L. The motive was hidden no longer, but the shadow's face was still a mask. The manor's secrets were closing in, and Poirot was ready to rip that mask away. Chapter 11. Poirot's Little Grey Cells. The twilight cast an eerie glow over Blackthorn Manor, its ancient stones seeming to absorb the fading light, as if guarding the secrets within. Hercule Poirot stood in the East Wing's corridor, the memory of the lavender vault's trap still vivid, the iron gate, the sedative mist, the stolen book. The killer, the shadow, had outmaneuvered them, reclaiming the book of names and rituals that revealed the Thornheart's supposed power. Yet Poirot's little grey cells were alight with purpose, piecing together the fragments of the puzzle. The black roses, the lavender scent, the delicate handprint, and the name VL marked in the book. The motive was clear: power, fear, or revenge. But the killer's identity remained a shadow just beyond his grasp. Tonight, he would use his intellect to draw them into the light. The guests, shaken by the vault's trap, were gathered in the drawing-room, their nerves frayed too, breaking. Lady Eleanor Blackthorne sat by the fire, her face a mask of exhaustion, her black dress blending with the shadows. Sir Reginald Thorne, his military bravado reduced to a scowl, gripped the armrests of his chair, his eyes darting to the door. Miss Clara Duval, her beauty marred by fear, clutched a shawl, her gaze fixed on Poirot, as if he were their only hope. Dr. Henry Whitmore, his journal now a tattered relic, adjusted his spectacles, muttering about the book's loss. Mr. Victor Langston stood apart, his cold smile gone, replaced by a calculating stillness that Poirot noted with interest. Grayson, the chauffeur, lingered near the entrance, his stoic demeanour a quiet enigma. Poirot paced slowly, his patent leather shoes silent on the carpet, his hands clasped behind his back. "Mes amis," he began, his voice a beacon of calm. "In the storm of suspicion, we have been tested, but not defeated. The Shadow believes they have won, stealing the book from the Lavender Vault. But they underestimate Hercule Poirot. My little grey cells, they do not rest. The book revealed names, motives, and a truth the killer fears. We are close, very close, to unmasking them. Tonight, we shall set a trap of our own." Lady Eleanor's voice was hoarse. "A trap, Monsieur Poirot? After what happened in the vault, the Shadow is always one step ahead. How can we hope to outwit them?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of his confidence. "Because, madame, the Shadow is human, and humans err. They leave clues, the handprint, the roses, the lavender. They speak as they did in the attic, revealing a voice, a feminine grace. And they act, as in the vault, showing desperation. The book is their prize, but it is also their weakness. They will come for the thorn heart, which I hold, and when they do, we shall be ready." Sir Reginald growled. His patient knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Lizzie the maid, her eyes wide with fear. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I found something in the study while cleaning. It was hidden in a book, a note with the black rose. I didn't tell her ladyship, only you." She handed him a crumpled paper, its message brief. "The vault is near, but the Shadow is nearer. Trust no one." Poirot's pulse quickened. "Merci, Lizzie. You have done well. Say nothing of this to anyone." As she left, Poirot knew the suspicions and alibis were converging. The vault was within reach, but so was the Shadow, their identity, hidden in the Manor's lies. The chandelier's fall, the box's letter, the note, they were pieces of a puzzle that Poirot was close to solving. But the killer was watching, and the next move would be theirs. Chapter 10. The Hidden Motive. The air in Blackthorn Manor was heavy with the weight of secrets, each room and corridor seeming to pulse with the unspoken truths that Hercule Poirot was determined to uncover. The discovery of the letter in the black rose-engraved box, addressed to Lord Alistair Blackthorne's betrayer, had sharpened the focus of the investigation, pointing inexorably toward the Lavender Vault and the motive behind Margaret's murder. The note found by Lizzie, the maid, with its warning, "The vault is near, but the Shadow is nearer. Trust no one," burned in Poirot's mind, a reminder that the killer was not only close, but desperate. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Manor's faded grandeur, Poirot knew the time had come to peel back the layers of deception and expose the hidden motive that drove the shadow. The guests were gathered in the drawing-room, their faces a study in tension and mistrust. Lady Eleanor Blackthorne sat by the window, her black dress absorbing the light, her hands clasped tightly as if to steady her nerves. Sir Reginald Thorne, his whisky glass abandoned, stood near the fireplace, his eyes darting to the others with barely concealed suspicion. Miss Clara Duval, her composure fraying, twisted a lock of hair, her gaze fixed on the floor. Dr. Henry Whitmore, his journal now a lifeline, scribbled furiously, while Mr. Victor Langston leaned against the doorframe, his cold smile a thin veneer over something darker. Grayson, the chauffeur, stood silently in the corner, his presence a quiet but constant reminder of the Manor's unseen players. Poirot stood at the room's centre, the letter from the box in one hand, the Thornheart gem still hidden in his waistcoat's secret pocket. "Mes amis," he began, his voice calm, but carrying an edge of steel, "we are close to the heart of this mystery. The letter from Lord Alistair speaks of betrayal, of a vault that holds proof of treachery. The Thornheart, which I possess, is a key to this vault, but it is the motive, the hidden motive, that drives the killer. Margaret died because she knew something, perhaps found the ledger or the gem. The shadow seeks to protect a secret, one tied to the theft of 20 years ago. Today we shall uncover that motive, and with it the killer's face." Lady Eleanor's voice was low, almost a whisper. "Monsieur Poirot, you speak of betrayal, but I have told you all I know. The theft ruined Alistair, turned him into a shadow of himself. If there is a motive, it lies with those who profited from his downfall." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Précisément, madame. And those who profited are here, in this room, or close by. Let us examine the ledger once more, for it holds the names of those Alistair controlled. Monsieur Langston, your initials, VL, appear, tied to a debt of silence in 1905. What did Alistair hold over you?" Langston's smile tightened, but his voice was smooth. "You're fishing, Poirot. Alistair and I had business dealings, nothing more. If he wrote my name, it was his paranoia, not proof. I owed him nothing." "And yet," Poirot said, turning to Sir Reginald, "you, Sir Reginald, invested heavily in the Thornheart venture. When the funds were stolen, you lost a fortune. Did you seek revenge, perhaps, or a way to reclaim what was yours?" Sir Reginald's face reddened. "Revenge? I'm no murderer, Poirot. I trusted Alistair, and he let me down. I moved on, unlike some." He glared at Lady Eleanor. Poirot's gaze shifted to Miss Duval. "Mademoiselle, you were close to Alistair, a confidant. The ledger mentions a CD, or Schachdescher, a debt of loyalty. What did he ask of you, and what did you gain?" Clara's eyes flashed with defiance. "I was his friend, nothing more. He confided in me about the Thornheart, yes, but I had no part in his schemes. If my name is there, it's because he valued my silence, not because I betrayed him." Dr. Whitmore, his voice trembling, spoke before Poirot could press further. "The journal, Monsieur Poirot. It mentions a keeper of the heart, someone Alistair trusted above all. I thought it was Lady Eleanor, but there's a note about a hidden ally, someone who knew the vault's location. Could that be the killer?" Poirot nodded, filing away the information. "A hidden ally, Doctor? A fine observation. The killer knows the Manor's secrets, its passages, its symbols. They are intimate with the Blackthorne legacy, which brings us to you, madam." He turned to Lady Eleanor. "Your initials, E.B., appear in the ledger, tied to the Thornheart's entrustment. You claim ignorance, yet you invited these guests, stirring the past. What is your motive?" Lady Eleanor rose, her face pale but resolute. "My motive, monsieur Poirot, is justice. Alistair's obsession destroyed our family. I invited these people to uncover the truth, to end the curse of the Thorn Heart. If I am in the ledger, it is because I was his wife, bound by his dreams, not his crimes." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Justice, madame, or control? The shadow watches us, and you, as host, hold the strings. But let us test these alibis and motives. The lavender vault awaits, and with it the proof we seek." Before he could continue, a sharp rap at the door interrupted. It was Lizzie the maid, her face ashen. "Monsieur Poirot, it's the cellar door, the iron one with the vine. It's open, sir. I checked it, like you asked, and it's ajar, but no one's been down there." The group froze, their eyes wide. Poirot's pulse quickened. "Open! Mon Dieu, the shadow moved swiftly. We must investigate, but with caution. The vault is no longer sealed, and the killer expects us." Led the group to the cellars, Grayson's lantern casting eerie shadows on the damp stone walls. The iron door, its thorny vine carving glinting in the light, stood slightly ajar, its lock intact, but disengaged. Poirot examined it, noting fresh scratches. Someone had picked it. I heard the scream like everyone else, but I was alone. I thought I heard footsteps outside my door earlier, but I saw no one. Dr. Whitmore, his hands trembling, spoke next. "I was in the library, reading Alistair's old journals. I didn't hear the scream until later, when I joined you all. I was alone, too." Poirot's gaze settled on Langston, who met it with a faint smirk. "I was in the conservatory, inspecting the grounds through the windows. The storm was heavy that night, but I saw no one, heard nothing until the scream. Alone as well." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Alone, all of you? How curious. 5 people, each without a witness, in a house where a murder occurred. The shadow moves unseen, but not unnoticed. Let us now consider last night, when Mademoiselle Duval was taken. Where were you between midnight and 2 o'clock?" The group exchanged uneasy glances. Lady Eleanor spoke first. "I was in my room trying to sleep. The events of the day, they kept me awake, but I didn't leave until you summoned us." Sir Reginald grunted. "I was in my room too. Had a nightcap, then turned in. Didn't hear a thing until your knocking, Poirot." Miss Duval, her voice soft, said, "I was in my room, reading, when I heard a noise, a creak, like someone's in the corridor. I opened the door, and that's when they grabbed me. I didn't see their face, only the cloak." Dr. Whitmore stammered. "I was in my room, working on the journal. I heard nothing, saw nothing, until you came for me, Monsieur Poirot." Langston's smile was thin. "I was in the drawing-room, reviewing some papers. I heard the scream, but by the time I reached the corridor, you were already there, Poirot." Poirot's mind raced, cataloguing their words. Each alibi was flimsy, unsupported, yet plausible in a house as vast as Blackthorn Manor. The killer, he knew, was among them, or perhaps a staff member. Grayson, the chauffeur, or Lizzie, the maid, whose small feet matched the handprint's delicate size. But the feminine voice in the attic, the lavender scent, the grace Miss Duval described. They pointed to a woman, or someone skilled in deception. He turned to the box, its black rose engraving glinting in the firelight. "This box is our next step," he said. "It requires a key, like the one Mademoiselle Duval found in Margaret's room. I believe it is hidden here, in the manor, perhaps in plain sight, as Lord Alistair was fond of doing." Dr. Whitmore, eager to contribute, opened his journal. The journal mentions a thorn of truth, a key hidden where the heart meets the vine. I thought it was the maze, but perhaps it's here, in the house. A room? A painting?" Poirot nodded, his eyes scanning the room. The drawing-room was filled with blackthorn relics, portraits, tapestries, a grandfather clock with a thorny vine carved into its base. His gaze settled on a portrait of Lord Alistair, his stern face framed by a gilded frame, etched with vines and roses. He approached it, running his fingers along the frame's edge. A faint click sounded, and a small compartment opened, revealing a silver key, its head shaped like a black rose. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, holding it aloft. "The Thorn of Truth." The group gasped, but before Poirot could open the box, a loud crash echoed from the corridor, followed by a muffled shout. "Stay here," he commanded, slipping the key into his pocket and rushing toward the sound, the others close behind. The noise had come from the foyer, where a massive chandelier lay shattered on the marble floor, its crystals scattered like stars. Grayson stood nearby, his face pale, a crowbar in hand. "It fell," he said, his voice unsteady. "I was checking the doors, and it just fell." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Fell, Monsieur Grayson, or was pushed?" He examined the wreckage, noting a severed rope, its ends frayed but clean, as if cut. "This was no accident," he said. "The shadow seeks to distract us, to delay us." Miss Duval, trembling, whispered, "They're trying to stop us from opening the box." "Précisément, mademoiselle," Poirot said, his voice grim. "But they will not succeed." He led the group back to the drawing-room, locking the door behind them. With deliberate care, he inserted the key into the box's lock, turning it until a soft click sounded. The lid opened, revealing a single sheet of parchment, its edges yellowed, but its ink clear. It was a letter, signed A. Blackthorne, and addressed to my betrayer. Poirot read aloud, "You thought you could steal my legacy, but the thorn heart is mine. The vault holds the proof of your treachery, sealed in lavender. Find it if you dare, but know the shadow guards it. You will pay for your sins." The words hung in the air, a chilling testament to Lord Alistair's obsession. Lady Eleanor's face crumpled, and she sank into her chair. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew who betrayed him, but he never told me." Poirot's gaze swept the room. "The betrayer, I think, is among us. Sir Reginald, you invested in the Thornheart venture. Miss Duval, you were Alistair's confidant. Dr. Whitmore, you aided his research. Monsieur Langston, you were his partner, suspected of theft. And Madame," he turned to Lady Eleanor, "you were his wife, yet you claim ignorance. One of you, or someone close, killed to keep this secret." Langston's smile vanished. "You're grasping, Poirot. That letter proves nothing. Alistair was paranoid, delusional. There's no proof of betrayal, only his ravings." "Proof, Monsieur Langston?" Poirot said, his voice sharp. "The handprint, the roses, the lavender. They are proof of a mind that plans, that kills. And now, this letter points us to the vault. We shall find it, and with it, the truth." He assigned tasks to keep the group under watch. Sir Reginald and Grayson were to secure the foyer, Dr. Whitmore to cross-reference the journal for vault clues, Miss Duval and Lady Eleanor to search Alistair's old study for more keys, and Langston to assist Poirot in examining the letter's parchment for hidden marks. As they dispersed, Poirot lingered, his mind on the chandelier's fall. It was a bold move, meant to frighten or delay, but it had revealed something. The killer was growing reckless, their control slipping. In the quiet of the drawing-room, Poirot studied the letter, noting a faint watermark, a thorny vine, visible only under angled light. It was a clue, perhaps to the vault's location. but it also confirmed the killer's intimacy with the Blackthorn legacy. He recalled Miss Duval's sighting of a cloaked woman, the feminine voice in the attic, and the delicate handprint. Lady Eleanor was the obvious suspect, her initials in the ledger, her evasions damning. But Langston's cold pragmatism and Grayson's access to the manor's secrets could not be ignored. A softening. One step, and she dies. Poirot raised his hands, his expression calm. You are the shadow, I presume. You have played a clever game, but it ends here. Let Mademoiselle Duval go, and we shall talk. The figure laughed, a chilling sound. Talk? You think you can outwit me with words? The thorn heart is mine, Poirot. Hand it over, or she pays the price. Poirot's mind raced. The voice, the grace of movement, details matched Miss Duval's own description, yet the figure's height and build suggested someone else. A disguise, perhaps. He needed to stall, to draw them out. The thorn heart is not here, he said, patting his coat, but I know its purpose. It is no mere gem, but a key to the lavender vault, where Lord Alistair hid his true treasure. Tell me, what is it you seek? Wealth, power, or revenge? The figure hesitated, their blade wavering. You know nothing, they spat. The vault is mine, and so is its secret. Alistair thought he could control it, but he was weak. I am not. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Weak, you say? Like Margaret, who knew too much? Like the handprint you left, smudged with lavender? You are clever, but not invisible. The figure flinched, a mistake Poirot seized. He lunged, not for the blade, but for a nearby crate, toppling it to create a distraction. The figure stumbled, and Miss Duval, seizing her chance, kicked out, tripping them. Poirot grabbed a heavy candlestick, ready to strike. But the figure was swift, vanishing through a hidden panel in the attic's wall, leaving only a black rose in their wake. Poirot untied Miss Duval, who sobbed with relief. They came for me, she gasped. They wanted the gem, said I knew where you hid it. You are safe now, mademoiselle, Poirot said, helping her to her feet. But we must hurry. The shadow is desperate, and the vault is their goal. They returned to the drawing-room, where the others had gathered, their search fruitless. Miss Duval's rescue was met with relief, but Poirot's announcement of the attic encounter heightened their fear. The killer is a woman, he said, or wishes us to believe so. They know the manor's secrets, its passages, the handprint, the rose, the lavender. They are pieces of a puzzle we must solve. He turned to Grayson, who had returned with the plaster. Monsieur, take Sir Reginald and preserve the handprint. Dr. Whitmore, search the journal for references to the attic. Madame, Mademoiselle Duval, check the staff for any missing women. Monsieur Langston, assist me in examining the attic's panel. As the group dispersed, Poirot and Langston ascended to the attic, the hidden panel now closed, but marked by a faint scratch. A thorny vine, etched in haste. The killer is careless, Poirot said, tracing the mark. They leave clues, as if daring us to catch them. Langston's smile was thin. Or they're leading us into a trap, Poirot. You're playing a dangerous game. Life, Monsieur Langston, is a dangerous game, Poirot replied, his eyes locking with Langston's. And Poirot plays to win. They opened the panel, revealing a narrow staircase descending to the east wing. At its base was a small, locked box, its lid engraved with the black rose. Poirot picked it up, noting its weight. Too light for gold, but heavy with promise. Another clue, he said, but one that vanishes as we grasp it. The shadow is always one step ahead. As dawn broke, Poirot knew the vanishing clue. The handprint, the box, The shadow's fleeting presence was a challenge to his intellect. The lavender vault was near, its secrets within reach, but the killer was closer still, their identity hidden in the manor's shadows. The game was far from over, and Poirot was ready to make his next move. Chapter 9. Suspicions and Alibis. The morning light filtered weakly through the heavy drapes of Blackthorn Manor, casting a pallid glow over the drawing-room where Hercule Poirot stood, his small frame radiating an intensity that belied the sleepless night. The rescue of Miss Clara Duval from the attic and the fleeting encounter with the cloaked figure, the shadow, had heightened the stakes. The tiny locked box from the attic, engraved with the black rose, rested on the table before him, its contents a mystery that Poirot was determined to unlock. The manor's secrets were unravelling, but so too were the fragile alliances among the guests, each now a suspect in a web of suspicion spun by the killer's taunts. The group assembled, their faces etched with exhaustion and mistrust. Lady Eleanor Blackthorn sat near the fire, her black dress stark against her pale skin, her eyes guarded but flickering with something Poirot could not yet name. Guilt, perhaps, or fear. Sir Reginald Thorne, his bluster subdued, clutched a tumbler of whisky despite the early hour, his knuckles white. Miss Duval, shaken but defiant, sat with her shoulders squared, her gaze darting to the others, as if searching for the shadow's face. Dr. Henry Whitmore, his journal a chaotic sprawl of notes, adjusted his spectacles nervously, while Mr. Victor Langston stood by the window, his cold smile a mask that Poirot longed to shatter. Poirot cleared his throat, drawing their attention. "Mes amis," he began, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "The shadow has shown themselves, if only for a moment. They sought to silence Mademoiselle Duval, to reclaim the Thornheart, but they failed. This box," he gestured to the table, "is their latest challenge, a clue to the lavender vault and the secrets it holds. But to find the truth, we must first confront the lies among us. Each of you has a connection to Lord Alister's past, to the Thornheart, to the blackmail. It is time for alibis and honesty." Sir Reginald snorted, his voice rough. "Alibis? For what, Poirot? Margaret's murder? Clara's kidnapping? You're accusing us now." Poirot's moustache twitched. Not accusing Sir Reginald, observing. The killer is clever, but they are human. They leave traces, the handprint, the roses, the lavender, and they are here, in this room, or very near. Let us begin with the night of Margaret's murder. Where were you, each of you, between 8 and 10 o'clock? A heavy silence fell, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Lady Eleanor spoke first, her voice measured. "I was in my study, preparing for your arrival, Monsieur Poirot. Margaret brought me tea around 8, but I saw her no more after that. I was alone until dinner." Poirot nodded, noting the lack of witnesses. "And you, Sir Reginald?" The colonel shifted, his face reddening. "I was in the billiard-room having a drink. Alone, mind you. I heard nothing, saw nothing, until that scream." "Convenient," Poirot murmured, turning to Miss Duval. "Mademoiselle." Clara's eyes flashed, but her voice was steady. "I was in my room, changing for dinner." That stalked them. The midnight discovery of the gem and the chilling encounter with the cloaked figure in the lavender-scented chamber had sharpened his resolve. The killer, referred to as the Shadow, had revealed themselves, if only briefly, and Poirot was determined to exploit their mistake. But the manor's secrets were as elusive as the Shadow itself, and a new clue was about to vanish, threatening to unravel his progress. The guests, summoned from their restless slumber, gathered in the drawing-room, their faces pale and drawn. Lady Eleanor Blackthorn sat rigidly, her black dress blending with the shadows, her eyes betraying a mix of fear and defiance. Sir Reginald Thorne, his military-bearing frayed, gripped a poker from the fireplace, as if expecting an attack at any moment. Miss Clara Duval, her beauty now a fragile veneer, twisted a handkerchief, her gaze darting to the door. Dr. Henry Whitmore, his journal clutched like a lifeline, muttered to himself, while Mr. Victor Langston leaned against the wall, his cold smile intact, but his fingers tapping an impatient rhythm. Poirot addressed the group, his voice calm but commanding. Mes amis, the night has brought us closer to the truth, but also to danger. The Thorn heart is in my possession, found in a chamber beneath the manor. The killer knows this, and they grow bold. Miss Duval has seen a figure, a woman, perhaps, fleeing in the cellars. And now we stand before the lavender vault, its door locked but its secrets within reach. We must open it, but first we address a new development. He paused, producing the note found by the iron door, its words stark. The vault is sealed, but the shadow is free. Leave or join Margaret. The group's reaction was immediate, gasps, murmurs, and Sir Reginald's muttered curse. Poirot continued, "This note is a threat, yes, but also a clue. The killer believes they control us, but they are mistaken. They have left something behind, something they did not intend for us to find." Dr. Whitmore, his curiosity piqued, leaned forward. "What, Monsieur Poirot? Another rose?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "No, doctor, something subtler. In the cellars, near the iron door, I observed a mark in the dust. A partial print, not of a shoe, but of a hand. It was small, delicate, and smudged with lavender pollen. This hand touched the rose, placed the note. It is a clue to the shadow's identity, but it is in danger of vanishing, for the cellars are damp and time erases such traces." Sir Reginald snorted. "A handprint? That's your great clue. It could belong to anyone. Lizzie, one of the maids, even Eleanor." Lady Eleanor's eyes flashed, but Poirot raised a hand. "Patience, Sir Reginald. The print is unique, not in its shape, but in its context. The lavender pollen ties it to the vault, to the Thorn heart, to Margaret's murder. We must preserve it, and we must open that door." Langston spoke, his voice smooth but edged with skepticism. "And how do you propose to do that, Poirot? The lock is modern, complex. We've no key, and breaking it risks damaging whatever's inside." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A challenge, Monsieur Langston, but not insurmountable. The ledger, the journal, they speak of keys hidden in plain sight. The pendant key opened the Maze's box. Another key, I believe, awaits us. We shall search, but first we secure the handprint." He instructed Grayson, the chauffeur, to fetch plaster from the manor's workshop, a relic of Lord Alistair's renovations, to cast the handprint before it faded. Grayson nodded, his stoic demeanour unshaken, but Poirot noted the man's hands, large, calloused, unlikely to match the delicate print. Another suspect, perhaps, but not the shadow. While Grayson departed, Poirot turned to the group, his mind racing. Miss Duval's sighting of a cloaked woman in the cellars was significant, narrowing the field. Lady Eleanor, Miss Duval herself, or an unknown female staff member were possibilities, but the lavender scent suggested a deeper connection to the Blackthorn legacy. He needed to provoke a reaction, to flush the shadow from hiding. "Madame," he said, addressing Lady Eleanor, "the ledger mentions E.B. You, perhaps. It speaks of loyalty, of the Thorn heart entrusted. What did your husband ask of you, and why do you conceal it?" Lady Eleanor's face paled, but her voice was steady. "Monsieur Poirot, I was Alistair's wife, not his accomplice. The ledger, it was his madness, not mine. If my initials appear, it is because he trusted me with his dreams, not his schemes. The Thorn Heart was his obsession, a myth he chased to his grave. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. And yet, madame, you invited these guests knowing their ties to that myth. Sir Reginald, his comrade, Miss Duval, his confidant, Dr. Whitmore, his scholar, Mr. Langston, his suspected betrayer. You stirred the past, and now it bleeds. Why? Before she could answer, a piercing scream shattered the silence, echoing from the upper floors. The group froze, their eyes wide. Mon Dieu! Poirot muttered, already moving. The shadow strikes again. They raced upstairs, Poirot leading with surprising speed, his senses alert. The scream had come from the guest wing, near Miss Duval's room. The door was open, and inside chaos reigned. A mirror lay shattered, its fragments glinting on the floor, and a chair was overturned. On the bed a black rose rested, its thorns stained with a single drop of blood, but Miss Duval was nowhere to be seen. "Clara!" Lady Eleanor cried, her composure cracking. "Where is she?" Poirot knelt by the rose, noting the blood, fresh, but not enough to suggest a fatal wound. "She is not dead," he said, his voice calm, but urgent. "This is a message, a distraction. The killer has taken her, but they have not gone far. Search the manor, every room, every passage." The group scattered, their footsteps pounding through the corridors. Poirot remained, examining the room. The mirror's shards showed no signs of a struggle, suggesting it was broken deliberately. The window was locked, ruling out an escape to the grounds. His eyes fell on a small hidden panel in the wall, its edge slightly ajar. He pressed it, revealing a narrow passage, its air thick with lavender. "Précisément," he murmured, stepping inside. The passage wound upward, toward the attic, its walls lined with faded portraits of Blackthorn ancestors, their eyes seeming to follow him. At its end was a trapdoor, leading to a vast, dusty attic filled with crates, trunks, and cobwebbed furniture. In the center, bound and gagged, sat Miss Duval, her eyes wide with terror. Beside her stood a figure, cloaked, hooded, a blade in hand. "Stop, Poirot!" the figure hissed, their voice distorted but unmistakably feminine. "No, I have the gem." Dr. Whitmore paled. "You think they'll come for it?" "I'm certain, Doctor, but Poirot is not so easily caught. Come, we shall wake the others. Safety lies in numbers, and I wish to see their faces when I reveal the Thorn Heart." They roused the group, assembling in the drawing-room despite the late hour. Sir Reginald grumbled about the interruption. Miss Duval wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, and Lady Eleanor and Langston exchanged a glance that did not escape Poirot's notice. He stood at the room's centre, the Thorn Heart still hidden, and addressed them. "Mes amis," he began, his voice commanding attention. "Tonight, we have made a discovery that changes everything. The Thorn Heart, the gem your husband sought, madam," he nodded to Lady Eleanor, "is in my possession. It was hidden in a chamber beneath the manor, guarded by the shadow that haunts us." A collective gasp filled the room. Lady Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Langston's eyes narrowed, and Sir Reginald's jaw dropped. Miss Duval, ever the actress, leaned forward, her voice breathless. "You have it? Show us, Monsieur Poirot." Poirot smiled faintly. "In due time, mademoiselle. First, we must understand its purpose. Dr. Whitmore, share what you have learned." Whitmore, clutching his journal, cleared his throat. The Thorn Heart, according to Lord Alister's notes, was not just a gem but a dao, symbol of power. He believed it was tied to an ancient ritual, one that could influence others, He was obsessed with finding it, convinced it was hidden in a lavender vault beneath the manor. The ledger, the blackmail. It was all to fund his search, to protect his discovery. Sir Reginald snorted. Influence others? Sounds like nonsense. Alistair was always chasing fairy tales. Not nonsense, Sir Reginald, Poirot said sharply. Power, in any form, is a motive for murder. The Thorn Heart, whether myth or reality, drove someone to kill Margaret, to steal Dr. Whitmore's notes, to leave black roses as warnings. And now they know I have it. We must find the lavender vault, for it holds the final piece of this puzzle. Lady Eleanor, her voice unsteady, spoke. The cellars. There are rooms down there, old wine stores, but I've never seen a vault. Alistair kept parts of the manor locked, even from me. Then we shall unlock them, Poirot declared. But first, a precaution. He produced the velvet pouch, empty now, and held it up. The Thorn Heart is safe, but I will not carry it into danger. It remains hidden, known only to me. The killer wishes it. They must come through Poirot. Langston's smile was thin. A bold move, Poirot. But you're painting a target on your back. Better a target, Monsieur Langston, than a victim, Poirot replied, his eyes locking with Langston's. The businessman's composure was unshaken, but Poirot sensed a flicker of unease. The group descended to the cellars, led by Grayson, who carried a lantern to light the way. The air grew colder, the scent of damp stone mingling with a faint trace of lavender. The cellars were a maze of low ceilings and narrow passages, their walls lined with racks of dusty bottles and crates of forgotten goods. Poirot consulted Whitmore's sketch, guiding them toward the chamber marked with the black rose. They reached a heavy iron door, its surface pitted with rust, but bearing a carving of the thorny vine. The lock was modern, incongruous with the door's age, and required a key they did not have. Poirot examined it, noting scratches around the keyhole. Recent, as if someone had tried to force it. This is it, he said, his voice low. The lavender vault, but we are not the first to seek it. Sir Reginald, impatient, pushed forward. Let's break it down, then. No lock's going to stop us. No, Sir Reginald, Poirot cautioned. We do not blunder into traps. The killer expects us here. We must be cleverer than they. As if in response, a low, eerie laugh echoed from the darkness behind them, followed by the sound of retreating footsteps. Miss Duval screamed, clinging to Lady Eleanor, while Dr. Whitmore dropped his journal, its pages scattering. Langston spun, his hand reaching for something inside his coat, but Poirot's sharp command stopped him. "Stay together," Poirot barked. "The shadow plays with us, but they will not escape." He led the group back, following the sound, but the passage branched into multiple routes, and the footsteps faded. They returned to the iron door, where Poirot noticed something new. A black rose, freshly placed at its base, its petals dusted with lavender pollen. Beside it was a note, scrawled in a hurried hand. "The vault is sealed, but the shadow is free. Leave or join Margaret." Poirot's pulse quickened, but his resolve hardened. "They fear us," he said, picking up the rose. "They fear what we will find. This door, this vault, it is the heart of the mystery. We shall return with tools, with light, and we shall open it." As they retreated to the drawing-room, the group was shaken but determined. Poirot, however, was preoccupied with the laugh. He had heard, low, almost feminine, but distorted by the cellar's acoustics. It was not Langston's voice, nor Sir Reginald's, but it could belong to any of the women, or even Grayson, whose stoic demeanour hid depths Poirot had yet to plumb. Back in his room, Poirot examined the ledger again, searching for clues to the vault's contents. One entry stood out, dated 1905. E.B. Loyalty secured, Thornhart entrusted. E.B. Eleanor Blackthorne. Had she been more than Alistair's wife, perhaps his accomplice? The thought gnawed at him, but he needed proof, as he pondered, and a soft knock came at the door. It was Miss Duval, her face pale but resolute. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I saw something tonight in the cellars. When we heard the laugh, I looked back. There was a figure cloaked, moving towards the east wing. I think it was a woman." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A woman, mademoiselle? You are certain?" "Not certain," she admitted, "but the way they moved, it was graceful, like a dancer. I thought you should know." "Merci, mademoiselle," Poirot said, his mind racing. A woman, Lady Eleanor, Miss Duval herself, deflecting suspicion, or another, yet unseen. The midnight discovery of the Thornhart had brought them closer to the truth, but it had also tightened the shadow's grip. The vault awaited, and with it the secrets of the past that would either save them or doom them all. Chapter 8. The Vanishing Clue. The air in Blackthorn Manor was thick with suspicion. Each creak of the ancient floorboards and flicker of candlelight amplifying the sense of impending doom. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing-room, the Thornhart, gem still concealed in his waistcoat's hidden pocket, its weight a constant reminder of the danger. Pondered. A faint scratching sound came from the wall behind his bed. He froze, listening. The sound grew louder, rhythmic, like nails on wood. Moving silently, he pressed his ear to the wall, detecting a hollow space. With careful pressure, he found a panel that slid open, revealing a narrow passage, its air thick with lavender. Poirot hesitated, knowing the danger, but his curiosity was stronger. Armed only with a small torch, he stepped inside, the passage sloping downward into darkness. The walls were damp, the scent of lavender overwhelming. After several minutes, he emerged in a small circular chamber, its floor inlaid with a mosaic of a black rose. In the center stood a stone pedestal, and on it a single object, a velvet pouch, its drawstring tied with a thorny vine. He opened the pouch, revealing a gem the size of a walnut, its facets glinting blood-red in the torchlight. The Thornhart. But as he reached for it, a shadow moved in the corner. A figure cloaked in black, their face obscured. A voice, low and menacing, hissed, "You should have stayed in London, Poirot." Before he could react, the figure lunged, a blade flashing in the dim light. Poirot dodged, his agility surprising his attacker, and the blade struck the pedestal, sparking against the stone. The figure fled, vanishing into the passage, leaving Poirot breathless but unharmed. He clutched the Thornhart, his mind racing. The killer had revealed themselves, if only for a moment. Their voice, their movements, details he would not forget. The secrets of the past were no longer buried. They were alive, and they were deadly. As he retraced his steps to the manor, Poirot knew the game had changed. The Thornhart was in his possession, but the shadow was watching, waiting for their next move. The night was far from over, and the truth was closer than ever. Chapter 7. A Midnight Discovery. The darkness of Blackthorn Manor seemed to pulse with menace as Hercule Poirot emerged from the hidden passage, the Thornhart gem clutched tightly in his gloved hand. The encounter in the lavender-scented chamber had left his heart racing, not from fear. Poirot prided himself on his composure, but from the thrill of being so close to the shadow that stalked them. The killer's voice, low and menacing, echoed in his mind. "You should have stayed in London, Poirot." It was a clue, a slip, and Poirot was determined to use it to unmask the culprit. But first he needed to secure the gem and regroup with the others, for the night was alive with danger, and time was running short. Back in his room, Poirot locked the door and wedged a chair beneath the handle, a precaution against further intrusions. He placed the thorn heart on the desk, its blood-red facets catching the flicker of his bedside lamp. It was beautiful, yes, but its weight felt heavier than its size suggested, a burden of secrets and bloodshed. He wrapped it in a handkerchief and slipped it into a hidden pocket inside his waistcoat, a place even the most thorough searcher would miss. The ledger, still in his possession, lay open beside him, its pages a grim testament to Lord Alistair Blackthorne's legacy of blackmail. The connection between the gem, the ledger, and Margaret's murder was clear, but the killer's identity remained elusive, a shadow just beyond his grasp. The manor was quiet, the hour past midnight, but Poirot knew better than to trust the silence. The scratching in the walls, the whisper in the chamber, the black roses, they were all signs of a mind that delighted in control, in manipulation. He needed to act swiftly, to turn the hunter into the hunted. His first task was to share the discovery of the thorn heart, but only with those he could trust, or at least those he could watch closely. He slipped into the corridor, his patent leather shoes silent on the carpet, and made his way to the drawing-room, where he had instructed the group to reconvene at dawn. To his surprise, a faint light glowed beneath the door, and the murmur of voices reached his ears. Poirot paused, listening. The voices were hushed, urgent, and unmistakably those of Lady Eleanor Blackthorne and Mr. Victor Langston. "Cannot continue like this," Lady Eleanor was saying, her tone strained. "The gem, the ledger, it's too much. If Poirot finds out, he won't." Langston cut in, his voice smooth but laced with steel. "Not if we're careful. The others are distractions, Eleanor. Keep them busy, and I'll handle the rest." Poirot's moustache twitched. Mon Dieu, he thought, a conspiracy, perhaps? He eased the door open just enough to peer inside. Lady Eleanor stood by the fireplace, her face pale, while Langston leaned against the table, his posture casual, but his eyes sharp. Neither noticed Poirot, their attention consumed by their conversation. "You promised no one would get hurt," Lady Eleanor whispered, her hands twisting her handkerchief. "Margaret, she didn't deserve—" "Margaret was a liability," Langston said coldly. "She knew too much, just like Alistair. You wanted the truth, Eleanor, and I'm giving it to you, but it comes at a cost." Poirot's pulse quickened. Langston's words were damning, but not conclusive. Was he the killer, or merely an accomplice? And what was Lady Eleanor's role? Victim, conspirator, or both? He retreated silently, deciding to confront them later, when he had more leverage. For now, he needed to verify the thorn heart's significance and uncover the lavender vault Dr. Whitmore had mentioned. He made his way to Dr. Whitmore's room, knocking softly. The scholar opened the door, his eyes bleary but alert, his journal clutched to his chest. "Monsieur Poirot," he stammered, "what's happened? It's the middle of the night." "Précisément, doctor," Poirot said, stepping inside and closing the door. "The hour when secrets are most vulnerable. I have found the thorn heart, but I need your expertise. The journal, does it speak of where the gem was kept, or what it was meant to do?" Dr. Whitmore's eyes widened. "You found it? Where?" Poirot waved a hand, deflecting the question. "In a place the killer did not expect. Now, the journal, s'il vous plaît." Whitmore opened the journal, his fingers trembling as he flipped to a marked page. "Here," he said, pointing to a passage. "Alistair wrote, 'The thorn heart is the key to the vault. But the vault is the true prize. In lavender it lies, beneath the heart of the house, guarded by thorns. There's also a sketch, a floor plan, I think, of the manor's cellars. It shows a chamber marked with the black rose. Poirot leaned closer, studying the sketch. The cellars were a labyrinth of rooms and passages, but the chamber stood out, its entrance hidden behind a false wall. The heart of the house, he murmured. The cellars, beneath the grand foyer, perhaps. We must investigate, but not alone. The killer is watching, and they knows. This ledger lists names, dates, and deeds, debts unpaid, betrayals concealed, lives ruined. And among those names, I suspect, are some in this room. A gasp rippled through the group. Miss Duval's hand flew to her throat. Dr. Whitmore's pen clattered to the floor, and Langston's smile tightened, though his eyes remained unreadable. Lady Eleanor rose, her voice trembling but firm. Monsieur Poirot, you go too far. My husband was not a saint, but he was no villain. If this ledger exists, it is a relic of his paranoia, not proof of his crimes. Poirot met her gaze, his expression unyielding. Paranoia, madame, or truth? The ledger speaks of a great treasure, a knowledge so dangerous it warranted murder. You invited us here to uncover a crime from 20 years ago. A theft, you said. But I think it was more. A betrayal, perhaps, that set this chain of events in motion. Tell us, madame, what was stolen, and by whom? Lady Eleanor's face paled, and for a moment Poirot thought she might faint. But she steadied herself, her eyes flashing with defiance. You want the truth, Monsieur Poirot? Very well. 20 years ago, my husband was involved in a venture. A consortium of investors seeking a rare artifact, a relic said to hold immense power. It was called the Thorn Heart, a gem of legend rumoured to grant its possessor influence over minds. Alistair believed it was real, hidden somewhere in this manor. But the venture collapsed when the funds, millions, were stolen. Alistair was blamed, disgraced. He never recovered. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The Thorn Heart. A gem, you say, but also a symbol, like the thorny vine. And the thief? Who was it? Lady Eleanor hesitated, her voice dropping to a whisper. He never knew for certain. He suspected someone close, a friend, a partner. He became obsessed, secretive. That ledger, those passages, they were his attempt to protect himself, to find the truth. Dr. Whitmore, his curiosity overcoming, his nerves spoke up. The journal mentions the Thorn Heart, too. Alistair wrote of a vault of lavender where it was hidden. He believed it was cursed, that it drove men to madness. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The lavender scent, the vault, the ledger, all pointed to a treasure that was more than Turquoise, a gem, a secret that had cost lives. But before he could press further, a loud thud echoed from above, followed by a muffled cry. The group froze, their eyes wide. Mon Dieu, Poirot said, already moving toward the door. We are not alone in this house. Quickly! They hurried up the grand staircase, Poirot leading with surprising agility, his senses heightened by the urgency of the moment. The sound had come from the guest wing, near Dr. Whitmore's room. As they reached the corridor, they found the door to his room ajar. The lock splintered as if forced open. Inside, the room was in disarray. Books scattered, papers torn, and a chair overturned. On the floor, near the window, lay a single black rose, its petals stark against the polished wood. Dr. Whitmore, trembling, pushed past Poirot to inspect his belongings. "My notes!" he cried, rifling through the debris. "They're gone. The pages I transcribed from the journal, the maps. Someone's taken them." Poirot knelt beside the rose, his gloved fingers tracing its stem. "Another message," he said, his voice grim. "The shadow strikes again, but this time they are desperate. They fear what you have learned, Doctor." "Sir," Reginald, his fists clenched, growled. "This is madness. First Margaret, now this. We're being hunted, Poirot." "Not hunted, Sir Reginald," Poirot corrected, rising. "Manipulated. The killer wishes us to feel fear, to scatter like frightened birds. But Poirot does not scatter. We shall use this to our advantage." He examined the room, noting the forced lock, the absence of footprints in the dust, and the open window, its latch undone. "The intruder entered from outside," he said, "perhaps from the balcony. Monsieur Langston, Sir Reginald, check the grounds below. Mademoiselle Duval, assist Dr. Whitmore in salvaging what remains of his notes. Madam," he turned to Lady Eleanor, "you and I shall speak privately." The group dispersed, their movements tense but purposeful. Poirot led Lady Eleanor to a small study off the corridor, its walls lined with faded portraits of Blackthorn, ancestors. He closed the door, his expression stern. "Madame, the time for half-truths is over. The Thorn Heart, the theft, the ledger. These are your husband's legacy, but you know more than you have shared. Why invite these guests? What do they know of the past?" Lady Eleanor sank into a chair, her hands trembling. "Monsieur Poirot, I invited them because each was part of Alistair's life during that time. Sir Reginald was his comrade, invested in the venture. Miss Duval was close to him, a confidant. Dr. Whitmore helped research the Thorn Heart's history, and Mr. Langston. He was the financier, the one Alistair suspected of the theft. I thought, by bringing them here, I could force the truth to surface, to end this curse on my family." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A dangerous game, madam. And Margaret? Was she part of this plan?" Lady Eleanor shook her head, tears welling. "No, she was loyal, but curious. I found her reading Alistair's old letters once, asking questions. I warned her to stop, but perhaps she didn't." Poirot nodded, filing away her words. Margaret's curiosity had likely led to her death, but Lady Eleanor's role was still unclear. Was she a grieving widow seeking justice, or a manipulator pulling strings? He would need more evidence to decide. Returning to the drawing-room, Poirot found Dr. Whitmore and Miss Duval sorting through the remnants of his notes. "Some pages are missing," Whitmore reported, his voice shaky. "The ones about the lavender vault and the Thorn Heart's location. But I remember enough. Alistair wrote of a heart within the heart, a chamber beneath the manor, accessible only through a specific passage." Poirot's pulse quickened. "A chamber beneath the manor. The lavender vault, perhaps. We must find it, but first we secure this house. The killer is close, and they grow bold." He instructed Sir Reginald and Langston, who had found no traces, on the grounds, to patrol the manor's entrances. Miss Duval and Lady Eleanor were to lock all windows, while Dr. Whitmore continued his work under Poirot's supervision. As night deepened, Poirot retired to his room, the ledger open before him. He read through the names, recognizing none, but noting their prominence. Politicians, aristocrats, scholars. One entry caught his eye. V.L. Debt of Silence, 1905. V.L. Victor Langston! It was a possibility, but not proof. As he bite ones like someone running. They came from the corridor, but when I looked, no one was there. And there was a smell, like flowers. Lavender, maybe. Poirot's moustache quivered. Lavender again. It was no coincidence. Merci, Lizzie. You may go, but stay where we can find you. As Lizzie scurried away, Poirot addressed the group. The lavender scent, It is a thread that binds our clues, the chamber, the maze, now this pantry. It is not a perfume, I think, but something deliberate, a marker. We must find its source. Dr. Whitmore, flipping through his journal, spoke up. The journal mentions lavender, Monsieur Poirot. Lord Alistair wrote of a lavender vault, a place where he hid something precious. I thought it was a metaphor, but perhaps it's real. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A vault? Précisément, Doctor. This is no metaphor. It is a place, and the killer knows of it. The outline in the pantry, it was a decoy, meant to distract us. The true vault is elsewhere, and we must find it before the shadow strikes again. He assigned tasks to keep the group occupied and under observation. Sir Reginald and Langston were to search the east wing for more hidden passages. Miss Duval and Lady Eleanor to question the staff about lavender or unusual activity, and Dr. Whitmore to cross-reference the journal's maps with the manor's layout. Poirot, meanwhile, returned to the pantry, determined to unravel its secrets. Alone in the cramped room, he examined the chalk outline again, his mind racing. The rectangle's size suggested a trunk or chest, but its absence was telling. Shoo, killer had moved it, but why leave the outline? To mislead, yes, but also to boast. The message the shadow sees was personal, a challenge to Poirot's intellect. He turned his attention to the shelves, running his fingers along their edges. One shelf, at waist height, wobbled slightly under pressure. With a gentle push, it swung inward, revealing a narrow crawl space. Poirot, undeterred by the dust, crawled through, emerging in a small windowless room lit by a single flickering bulb. The air was heavy with the scent of lavender, so strong it made his eyes water. The room was bare save for a wooden table, on which sat a leather-bound ledger, its cover embossed with the thorny vine. Poirot opened it, his heart pounding. The 2 pages were filled with names, dates, and sums, hundreds of them, spanning decades. It was a record of transactions, but not of money. Each entry listed services rendered, with cryptic notes like silence insured or debt forgiven. At the bottom of each page was a signature. A. Blackthorne. Mon Dieu, Poirot whispered. This was no ordinary ledger. It was a blackmailer's book, documenting secrets Lord Alistair had held over countless individuals. The treasure was knowledge, indeed. Knowledge that could ruin lives. As he flipped through the pages, a noise behind him, a soft, deliberate footstep, made him freeze. He turned, but the room was empty, the crawl space dark. Yet the lavender scent was stronger now, and a faint whisper, like the one in the maze, brushed his ears. The shadow sees. Poirot's pulse quickened, but his resolve hardened. The killer was close, perhaps watching from the shadows of the crawl space. He slipped the ledger into his coat, replaced the shelf, and returned to the pantry, his mind alight with new questions. The ledger was a motive for murder, but whose secrets did it hold? And why had the killer let him find it? Back in the drawing room, he shared his discovery, omitting the whisper to avoid alarming the group. The ledger's implications sent a chill through the room. Lady Eleanor's face paled, and Langston's smile faltered for the first time. Blackmail, Sir Reginald growled. So that's what Alistair was up to. No wonder someone wanted him gone. Not gone, Poirot corrected. Lord Alistair died years ago, of natural causes, we are told. But his secrets live on, and someone wishes to keep them buried. Margaret knew something, perhaps found this ledger. And now we are all targets. As night fell, Poirot knew the locked room puzzle was more complex than ever. The manor was a labyrinth of secrets, and the shadow was closing in. He would need all his wits to stay one step ahead, and to survive the night. Chapter 6. Secrets of the Past. The evening shadows stretched long across Blackthorn Manor, their tendrils creeping through the tall windows of the drawing-room where Hercule Poirot stood, the blackmailer's ledger still tucked securely inside his coat. The discovery of the ledger had shifted the investigation, casting a sinister light on the manor's history and the motives of its inhabitants. The scent of lavender, the thorny vine symbol, and the chilling whisper. The shadow seas were no longer mere clues but threads in a web of deceit that Poirot was determined to unravel. The past, he knew, held the key to the present, and tonight he would force its secrets into the open. The guests were gathered once more, their faces etched with a mix of exhaustion and dread. Lady Eleanor Blackthorne sat near the fire, her black dress absorbing the flickering light, her hands folded tightly, as if to anchor herself against the storm of revelations. Sir Reginald Thorne, his whisky glass empty for once, leaned heavily against the mantel, his eyes bloodshot. Miss Clara Duval, her beauty now a fragile mask, sat with her shoulders hunched, as if bracing for an unseen blow. Dr. Henry Whitmore, his journal open but untouched, stared blankly at the pages, while Mr. Victor Langston, ever the enigma, stood by the door, his cold gaze sweeping the room like a predator, assessing prey. Poirot cleared his throat, drawing their attention. "Mes amis," he began, his voice steady but carrying an edge of authority. "We stand at a crossroads. The murder of Margaret, the clues in the maze, the ledger found in the hidden room. These are not isolated events, but pieces of a puzzle that stretches back 20 years. Tonight we must confront the past, for it is the past that drives the killer among us." Lady Eleanor's lips parted, but no sound came. Poirot continued, producing the ledger and holding it aloft. "This book, written by Lord Alistair Blackthorne, is a record of secrets, secrets he used to wield power over others." "Blackmail, madam," he said, fixing his gaze on Lady Eleanor, "is a motive as old as time. Margaret, I believe, discovered this ledger, or knew of it. Her death was no accident, but a desperate act to keep these secrets buried." Sir Reginald's face reddened. "Blackmail? Alistair? That's absurd. He was a gentleman, a soldier. He'd never stoop to such filth." Poirot's moustache twitched. "A gentleman, Sir Reginald? Perhaps. But even gentlemen have shadow, urging him toward a truth that could unravel the manor's secrets, or destroy them all." Chapter 5. The Locked Room. Puzzle. The afternoon sun hung low over Blackthorn Manor, its golden rays struggling to pierce the heavy clouds that had gathered, casting the estate in a muted, almost mournful light. Inside, the drawing-room was a hive of tension, the air thick with the scent of old wood, wax polish, and the faint lingering trace of lavender that Hercule Poirot had come to associate with the manor's secrets. The iron-bound box sat on the table, its lid open, the cryptic letter within now a shared burden among the guests. Poirot stood beside it, his small, immaculate figure a beacon of resolve, though his green eyes betrayed the intensity of his thoughts. Chichu, Enja, letters, words. The treasure is not gold, but knowledge. Beware the shadow that guards it. Echoed in his mind, each syllable a challenge to his deductive powers. The pendant key, found in Margaret's room by Miss Clara Duval, had unlocked the box, but it had also deepened the mystery. Who was the shadow? Why had Margaret hidden the key? And how did this connect to the 20-year-old crime lady Eleanor Blackthorne had hinted at? The guests, reassembled after their assigned tasks, were visibly shaken. Sir Reginald Thorne, his military bravado fraying, paced near the fireplace, muttering about damned riddles. Miss Duval, her theatrical poise strained, sat with her hands clasped tightly, her eyes darting to the windows as if expecting an unseen threat. Dr. Henry Whitmore, his journal now a chaotic mess of notes, fidgeted with his pen, while Mr. Victor Langston leaned against the wall, his cold smile a mask that Poirot longed to crack. Lady Eleanor, the enigmatic host, stood by the window, her black dress blending with the shadows, her expression unreadable. "Monsieur Poirot," Lady Eleanor said, turning to face him, "this letter. It is my husband's hand, I am certain, but its meaning eludes me. What knowledge could be so valuable, so dangerous, that it costs lives?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of his mind at work. "Madame, the knowledge your husband speaks of is tied to the past, to the theft you mentioned. It is a secret someone wishes to keep buried, and Margaret, poor soul, stumbled upon it. The shadow, the killer, moves to protect this secret. But they are not infallible. They leave clues, and Poirot will find them." Sir Reginald stopped pacing, his face red. "Clues? All we've got are riddles and a dead maid. If you ask me, we should call the police and be done with this madness." Poirot raised a hand, his voice calm but commanding. "No, Sir Reginald. The police, they will come in time, but they lack the finesse to unravel this puzzle. We are in a locked room, mes amis, not of walls, but of secrets. The manor is our crime scene, and we its players. To solve this, we must think as the killer thinks." Dr. Whitmore, his voice trembling, spoke up. "A locked room, like in those detective stories. But how does that apply here? Margaret was in a hidden chamber, not a locked room." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Précisément, Doctor. The chamber was hidden yet accessible. The killer entered and left without detection. A classic locked room puzzle. But it is not the chamber alone we must consider. It is the manor itself. Each secret passage, each clue, locks us further into the mystery. The maze, the box, the letter, they are pieces of a larger design." Before he could elaborate, a sharp rap at the door startled the group. It was Grayson, the manor's taciturn chauffeur, his grey uniform immaculate despite the day's chaos. "Beg pardon, my lady," he said, addressing Lady Eleanor. "One of the staff found something in the east wing. They thought it best to inform you at once." Lady Eleanor's eyes widened, but she nodded. "Show us, Grayson." The group followed Grayson through the manor's winding corridors, Poirot noting the chauffeur's steady gait, and the way his hands remained clasped behind his back, as if hiding something. They reached the east wing, near the old library, where Margaret's body had been discovered. Grayson led them to a small, nondescript door, its paint peeling and its lock rusted. "It's the butler's pantry," he explained, "rarely used now, but one of the maids noticed the door was ajar." Poirot stepped forward, his senses alert. The door creaked open, revealing a cramped room lined with shelves of dusty crockery and tarnished silver. In the centre, on the floor, was a chalk outline, not of a body, but of a rectangle, roughly the size of a small trunk. Beside it, scrawled in the dust, were the words, "The shadow sees, mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, kneeling to examine the outline. The chalk was fresh, its edges sharp, and the dust around it undisturbed except for a single set of footprints. Small, narrow, like those of a woman. He traced the outline with a gloved finger, noting its precision. "Something was here," he said, "something heavy, recently removed. And this message, it is another taunt." Miss Duval, peering over his shoulder, shivered. "The shadow sees? It's as if they're watching us, mocking us." "Indeed, Mademoiselle," Poirot said, rising, "but they are not invisible. These footprints, they are a mistake. The killer is human, and humans err." Sir Reginald, his patience wearing thin, growled, "Footprints? Chalk? What does it mean, Poirot? Are we chasing ghosts or a murderer?" Poirot turned to him, his expression grave. "We chase a murderer, Sir Reginald, one who weaves a web of misdirection. This outline, it suggests an object of importance. Perhaps the treasure Lord Alistair wrote of. The killer has moved it, but they wish us to know they are in control. The shadow sees, they say, but Poirot sees also." He turned to Grayson. "Monsieur, who discovered this?" "Lizzie, one of the kitchen maids," Grayson replied. "She's in the servants' hall, quite shaken." "Bring her to us," Poirot instructed, "and ensure no one else enters this room." As Grayson departed, Poirot examined the pantry, further, his eyes catching on a faint scratch on the wall near the floor. It was subtle, but deliberate. A tiny carving of a black rose, its thorns exaggerated. He filed it away, another piece of the puzzle. Lizzie, a young woman with wide eyes and trembling hands, was brought to the drawing-room shortly after. She curtsied nervously to Lady Eleanor, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to cause trouble, my lady. I was fetching a tray from the pantry when I saw the door open. I looked inside and there it was, that drawing in the dust. I didn't touch nothing, I swear." Poirot's tone was gentle, coaxing. "Mademoiselle, Lizzie, you have done well to report this. Tell me, did you see anyone near the pantry before you entered? Any sound? Any movement?" Lizzie hesitated, then nodded. I heard footsteps, sir." Poirot paused at the entrance, his keen senses alert. The air carried a faint, sweet scent. Lavender, he realized, though no such plants were visible. It was a clue, subtle but significant, echoing the scent he had detected in the hidden chamber where Margaret was found. He filed it away, his mind already mapping the maze's potential secrets. "Stay close," Lady Eleanor instructed, her voice barely above a whisper. "The maze is large, and it's easy to become lost." They entered single file, Poirot at the rear, to observe the group's dynamics. The hedges towered above them, their branches woven so tightly that little light penetrated. The path twisted and turned, splitting into multiple routes that forced decisions at every step. Sir Reginald, impatient, took the lead, his heavy footsteps crunching on the gravel. Miss Duval clung to Lady Eleanor's arm, her eyes darting to the shadows. Dr. Whitmore, clutching his journal, muttered about the maze's geometric patterns, while Langston moved with a predator's grace, his silence more unsettling than Sir Reginald's bluster. As they navigated deeper, Poirot noted the maze's design, its symmetry, its deliberate complexity. This was no mere garden feature. It was a creation of intent, perhaps even obsession. Lord Alistair, he thought, had built this maze for a purpose beyond aesthetics. The journal's references to a great treasure and a heart suggested the maze's centre held something vital. After several wrong turns and heated debates, Sir Reginald's insistence on always turning right proving predictably futile, they reached a clearing at the maze's heart. It was a circular space, paved with moss-covered stones and dominated by a marble statue of a woman, her face serene, but her hands clutching a thorny vine that wrapped around her torso. At her feet was a stone plinth, its surface etched with the words, "In thorns, truth." Poirot's pulse quickened. "The heart of the maze," he said, stepping forward to examine the statue. The vine carving matched the blackthorn crest, its thorns sharp enough to prick his gloved finger when he tested them. The plinth, he noticed, was slightly askew, as if it had been moved recently. "Help me, Monsieur Langston," Poirot said, gesturing to the plinth. Langston, with a faint smirk, lent his strength, and together they shifted the heavy stone, revealing a shallow compartment beneath. Inside was a small, iron-bound box, its lid engraved with the thorny vine and sealed, with a complex lock. "Good Lord," Sir Reginald muttered, peering over Poirot's shoulder. "Is that the treasure?" "Not yet, Sir Reginald," Poirot replied, his voice calm, but his mind racing. "But it is a step closer. This box, it is locked for a reason. We must find the key." Dr. Whitmore, ever eager, knelt to inspect the lock. "It's intricate," he said, adjusting his spectacles. "Old but well crafted. The key would be unique, likely marked with the same symbol." Poirot nodded, but before he could speak, a low, eerie whisper echoed through the clearing. Not words, but a sibilant hiss, like wind through dry leaves. The group froze, their eyes wide. Miss Duval clutched Lady Eleanor's arm, her breath hitching. "What was that?" she whispered. Poirot held up a hand, listening intently. The sound came again, louder, from the hedges to their left. He moved toward it, his steps deliberate, and parted the branches to reveal a small hidden alcove. Inside, embedded in the hedge, was a metal grate, its bars rusted but intact. The whisper emanated from below, carried by a faint draught that smelled of damp earth and lavender. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured. "Another passage, perhaps. This maze, it is full of secrets." Sir Reginald, his courage bolstered by the daylight, pushed forward. "Let's open it, then. If there's a killer hiding down there, I'll have him by the scruff." "Patience, Sir Reginald," Poirot cautioned. "We do not rush into the unknown. This grate, it is locked, and we have no tools. We shall return to the manor, secure the box, and plan our next move." Reluctantly, the group agreed, though Langston's eyes lingered on the grate, his expression unreadable. They retraced their steps, the iron box cradled in Poirot's arms, its weight a tangible reminder of the mystery's depth. The maze seemed to close in around them as they left, its hedges whispering secrets they could not yet understand. Back at the manor, Poirot placed the box in the drawing-room, under Sir Reginald's watchful eye, and gathered the group for a discussion. "We have found a clue," he said, "but also a warning. The whisper in the maze, the lavender scent, these are signs that the killer is near, watching us. We must be methodical. Dr. Whitmore, continue your study of the journal. Mademoiselle Duval, assist Lady Eleanor in questioning the staff about Margaret's movements. Monsieur Langston, Sir Reginald, inspect the manor's grounds for signs of the passage's exit." "And you, Monsieur Poirot?" Lady Eleanor asked, her voice steady but her eyes wary. "I shall examine this box," Poirot replied, "and reflect on the whispers we have heard. The killer speaks to us, madame, through their actions. It is for Poirot to listen." As the group dispersed, Poirot retreated to his room, the journal and box in hand. He opened the journal to a page he had marked, where Lord Alistair had written of the key to the heart, hidden in plain sight. The words nagged at him, suggesting the key to the box was closer than they realized. He examined the box's lock, noting its intricate design. 7 tiny slots, arranged in a circle, like the petals of a rose. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Miss Duval, her face pale but determined. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, "I found something in Margaret's room. It was hidden in her mattress. A small pendant, shaped like a vine with a black rose. I thought you should see it." Poirot took the pendant, his fingers tracing its delicate craftsmanship. It was heavy, too heavy for mere decoration. With a gentle twist, he discovered it opened, revealing a tiny ornate key, its head shaped like a thorn. "Mademoiselle," he said, his eyes gleaming, "you have done well. This, I believe, is what we seek." He inserted the key into the box's lock, turning it carefully. The mechanism clicked, and the lid sprang open, revealing a single object, a folded letter, its wax seal unbroken, bearing the thorny vine. Poirot broke the seal and read aloud, "To those who seek the truth, the treasure is not gold, but knowledge. Beware the shadow that guards it, for it will stop at nothing to keep the past buried." The words hung in the air, a chilling promise of danger. Poirot looked at Miss Duval, his expression grave. "The shadow," he said, "is the killer, and they are closer than we think." As the day waned, Poirot knew the whispers in the shadows were growing louder. "Not a game, Sir Reginald," Poirot said, his voice grave. "A warning. The killer is close, and they wish us to know it." Miss Duval, clinging to Lady Eleanor's arm, whispered, "But why leave a rose? It's macabre." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "It is deliberate, mademoiselle. The rose, the vine, they are symbols, tied to the Blackthorn legacy. They tell us the killer is not finished, that there is more to come." He examined the room, noting the dust disturbed near the window, the faint imprint of a shoe. Someone was here moments ago. They fled through the window, perhaps to the grounds below. "Sir Reginald, Monsieur Langston, please check the exterior. Dr. Whitmore, assist Lady Eleanor in securing the staff. Mademoiselle Duval, remain with me." The group dispersed, their movements tense and hurried. Poirot and Miss Duval returned to the hallway, where he examined the vase's fragments. Among the shards he found a small crumpled note, its ink smudged but legible. "The truth lies in the thorns. Seek the heart of the maze." Poirot's moustache twitched. "A maze," he said, half to himself. "The Manor's gardens, perhaps, or a metaphor for the secrets we unravel." Miss Duval, her composure returning, tilted her head. "You think this is a clue, Monsieur Poirot, or another trick?" "Both, mademoiselle," he replied. "The killer is clever, but they cannot resist the urge to play. They leave breadcrumbs, knowing we will follow. And follow we shall." As they returned to the drawing-room, Poirot's mind was ablaze with possibilities. The black rose, the note, the journal. They were pieces of a larger puzzle, one that tied the present murder to the past betrayal. Lady Eleanor's role as host was central, but her reticence suggested she was as much a player as a victim. The guests, too, were not what they seemed. Each had a motive, a secret, waiting to be exposed. He gathered the group once more, sharing the discovery of the rose and the note. Sir Reginald, back from the grounds, reported no sign of an intruder, though the rain had likely washed away any tracks. Langston's search had been equally fruitless, though Poirot noted the man's pristine shoes, untouched by mud. "The maze," Lady Eleanor said, her voice hollow. "There is indeed a maze in the gardens, built by my husband's grandfather. It's overgrown now, rarely visited. But Alistair, he spoke of it sometimes, as if it held something precious." "Then we shall visit it," Poirot declared, "tomorrow at first light. For now, we must remain vigilant. The killer is among us or very near. No one is to wander alone." As the group retired to their rooms, Poirot lingered, his gaze lingering on Lady Eleanor. She was the enigmatic host, the keeper of the Manor's secrets, and the architect of this gathering. But was she the mastermind, or merely a pawn in a game she did not fully understand? He retired to his own room, locking the door and placing a chair beneath the handle for good measure. As he sat at the small desk, the journal open before him, he began to read Lord Alistair's words, each page a step deeper into the darkness of Blackthorn Manor. The night was alive with danger, and Poirot knew that the next move in this deadly game was his to make. Chapter 4. Whispers in the Shadows. The first light of dawn crept through the heavy curtains of Blackthorn Manor, casting a pale, reluctant glow across the drawing-room, where Hercule Poirot had spent the night in quiet contemplation. Sleep had eluded him, not from discomfort, though the Manor's guest-bed was unforgivably lumpy for a man of his refined tastes, but from the ceaseless churn of his little grey cells. The murder of Margaret, the Black Rose, the cryptic note about the maze, and the thorny vine symbol wove a tapestry of intrigue that demanded his full attention. Each clue was a whisper from the shadows, and Poirot was determined to decipher their message. The other guests, roused by the Manor's staff, gathered in the dining-room for a breakfast that none seemed eager to eat. The air was thick with suspicion, the clink of silverware, and the murmur of strained pleasantries doing little to mask the tension. Lady Eleanor Blackthorn, her face drawn but composed, presided over the table, her green gown exchanged for a sombre black dress that seemed to absorb the morning light. Sir Reginald Thorne, his military bluster subdued, poked at his eggs with a scowl. Miss Clara Duval, her beauty marred by dark circles under her eyes, sipped coffee with trembling hands. Dr. Henry Whitmore, ever the nervous scholar, scribbled notes in a small journal, his pen scratching like an insect in the quiet. Mr. Victor Langston, as always, was an enigma, his sharp features betraying nothing as he surveyed the room. Poirot, seated at the table's end, declined the offered kippers, opting instead for a cup of strong black coffee. He observed the group, noting how their eyes darted, how their hands fidgeted. Fear, he thought, was a powerful lens, revealing truths that politeness concealed. Mes amis, he said, his voice cutting through the unease. We have much to do this day. The note we found last night speaks of a maze, and Lady Eleanor has confirmed its existence in the gardens. We shall investigate it together, for I believe it holds answers to our mystery. Sir Reginald grunted. A maze? Sounds like a fool's errand. If there's a killer about, we'd be mad to go traipsing through some overgrown hedge. Poirot's moustache twitched. On the contrary, Sir Reginald, it is precisely because there is a killer that we must go. The note was left for us to find, a challenge from one who plays a dangerous game. To ignore it is to let them dictate the terms. Miss Duval set down her cup, her voice low but firm. And what if it's a trap, Monsieur Poirot? That rose, the note, they're taunts, as you said. What's to stop the killer from striking again? Poirot met her gaze, his green eyes steady. Nothing, mademoiselle, save for the vigilance of Hercule Poirot. We shall proceed with caution, but proceed we must. The truth lies in the thorns, as the note declares. And the thorns, I think, are in that maze. Lady Eleanor rose, her expression unreadable. The maze is at the far end of the gardens, beyond the rose arbour. It has not been maintained since my husband's death, but it is still navigable. I will lead you there. The group set out after breakfast, bundled in coats against the morning chill. The Manor's gardens were a sprawling expanse of manicured lawns and wilder, untamed patches, their beauty tempered by an air of neglect. The rose arbour, its trellises heavy with crimson blooms, gave way to a gravel path that wound toward a dense wall of yew hedges, their dark green needles glistening with dew. The entrance to the maze was a narrow arch, its stone lintel carved with the now familiar thorny vine motifs and gilded mirrors clashing with the heavy silence that had settled over the group. The fire in the grate crackled, casting flickering shadows across the faces of the guests, each of whom seemed to carry the weight of Margaret's murder like a personal burden. Hercule Poirot stood near the mantel, his small, precise figure a beacon of calm amid the storm of suspicion. His green eyes, sharp as cut emeralds, moved from one guest to another, cataloguing every twitch, every averted glance. Lady Eleanor Blackthorne sat in a high-backed chair, her posture regal, but her hands betraying her unease as they twisted a lace handkerchief. She had just finished recounting what little she claimed to know about Margaret's presence in the hidden chamber, but Poirot sensed gaps in her story, deliberate omissions that intrigued him as much as they frustrated him. The others, Sir Reginald Thorne, Miss Clara Duval, Dr. Henry Whitmore, and Mr. Victor Langston, sat in a loose semicircle, their expressions ranging from defiance to dread. "Monsieur Poirot," Lady Eleanor said, breaking the silence, "you have seen the tragedy that has befallen us. I beg you to lend your expertise. We cannot rest until this horror is resolved." Poirot inclined his head, his moustache quivering slightly. "Madame, rest assured, Hercule Poirot does not rest when a crime remains unsolved. But to proceed, we must have clarity. You have gathered us here, you say, to confront a truth from 20 years past. Yet now we have a fresh murder. These events, they are connected, no?" Lady Eleanor's eyes flickered, but she nodded. "I believe so. The crime I spoke of, it was a theft, a betrayal that shattered my family. My husband, Lord Alistair, was never the same after it. He became secretive, obsessive. That chamber you found, it must be tied to his work, his fears." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "And Margaret, your maid, she was perhaps privy to these secrets?" I cannot say," Lady Eleanor replied, her voice faltering. "She was loyal, but she kept her own counsel. I trusted her implicitly." "Trust," Poirot mused, "is a fragile thing, madam. And in this house it seems in short supply." Oh, Reginald, his face still flushed from the whisky he'd been sipping, snorted. "What are you implying, Poirot? That one of us did this? Preposterous. Margaret was just a maid, for God's sake. Probably caught by some vagrant sneaking about the grounds." Poirot turned to him, his tone mild but cutting. "A vagrant, Sir Reginald. One who navigates a secret passage, wields a letter-opener, bearing the Blackthorn crest, and leaves no trace of entry or exit. Non. This was no random act. The killer knew the manor, knew Margaret, and had reason to silence her." Miss Duval, her beauty undimmed by the evening's horrors, leaned forward, her voice husky with emotion. "But why? What could poor Margaret have known that warranted such brutality?" "That, mademoiselle, is what we must discover," Poirot said. He reached into his pocket and produced the journal from the hidden chamber, its leather cover embossed with the thorny vine. "This, I believe, holds the key. Dr. Whitmore, you have begun to examine the papers. What have you found?" Dr. Whitmore, still pale and fidgeting with his spectacles, cleared his throat. It's a mix of documents. The journal appears to be Lord Alistair's, written in a hurried hand. There are references to a great treasure, something he believed was hidden within the manor. There are also maps, sketches of the house, with annotations about secret passages and compartments, and letters addressed to someone called E. They speak of betrayal, of a plan gone wrong. "E," Poirot repeated, his mind racing. He glanced at Lady Eleanor, whose initials matched the mysterious correspondent, but her face remained impassive. "And the treasure? What is its nature?" Dr. Whitmore hesitated. "It's unclear. Lord Alistair writes of a legacy beyond gold, something that could reshape destinies. But he's cryptic, almost paranoid. He mentions enemies, people watching him. Mr. Langston, who had been silent until now, spoke, his voice smooth and controlled. "A treasure, you say? Sounds like the ravings of a man unhinged. Blackthorne was known for his eccentricities. Perhaps this is all a delusion, and Margaret stumbled upon something she shouldn't have." Poirot's eyes narrowed. Langston's dismissal was too quick, too calculated. "Perhaps, Monsieur Langston, but delusions do not draw blood. Margaret's death is real, and so is the danger in this house." He turned to the group, his voice taking on a commanding edge. "Let us consider the facts. Margaret was killed in a hidden chamber, a place known to few. The weapon bears the Blackthorne crest, suggesting a connection to this family. The journal and papers point to a secret from 20 years ago, a theft, a betrayal, and a treasure, and you, mes amis, are here, invited by Lady Eleanor. Why? What role do each of you play in this drama?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Sir Reginald blustered. Miss Duval looked away. Dr. Whitmore shrank into his chair, and Langston's smile was a thin, unreadable line. Lady Eleanor rose, her green gown catching the firelight. "Monsieur Poirot, I invited these guests because each has a connection to my husband's past. Sir Reginald was his comrade in arms, Miss Duval a friend from his theatrical days, Dr. Whitmore a scholar who aided his research, and Mr. Langston a business associate. I believed they could help uncover the truth." "And yet," Poirot said softly, "one among us has killed. Or perhaps more than one." The accusation landed like a stone in still water, rippling through the room. Before anyone could respond, a loud crash echoed from upstairs, followed by the sound of running footsteps. Poirot was on his feet in an instant, his agility belying his age. "Quickly," he commanded, "we must not lose the trail." The group hurried up the grand staircase, Poirot leading the way with surprising speed. The sound had come from the second floor, near the guest wing. As they reached a long carpeted hallway, they found a shattered vase, its fragments scattered across the floor. A door at the hall's end stood ajar, swaying slightly, as if caught by a draught. Poirot approached cautiously, his hand on the door's edge. Inside was a bedroom, its furnishings draped in dust sheets. On the floor, near an open window, lay a single black rose, its petals stark against the faded carpet. The window's latch was undone, and a cold breeze carried the scent of rain and earth. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, picking up the rose with a gloved hand. "The black rose again. It is a signature, a taunt." Sir Reginald, panting from the climb, peered over his shoulder. "What's that supposed to mean? Someone's playing games with us." A soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming on wood. He held up a hand, silencing the group. "Écoutez," he whispered. "Listen." The tapping grew louder, more insistent, coming from the far end of the library. Poirot moved toward it, his patent leather shoes silent on the threadbare carpet. The others followed, their breaths uneven in the oppressive quiet. As they neared a massive fireplace, its hearth cold and blackened, the tapping abruptly stopped. Poirot knelt, his eyes scanning the floor. There, near the fireplace, was a small irregular stain, dark, almost black, and glistening faintly in the dim light. He touched it with a gloved finger, then sniffed delicately. "Blood," he said, his voice calm, but carrying an edge of certainty. "Fresh." Miss Duval gasped, stepping back into Dr. Whitmore, who stammered, "Blood, are you sure?" Poirot did not dignify the question with a response. Instead, he examined the fireplace, noting a faint seam in the stonework. "This is no ordinary hearth," he said, pressing gently on the seam. A low click echoed, and a section of the wall swung inward, revealing a narrow passage. "Good Lord," Sir Reginald muttered. "A secret passage?" "Indeed," Poirot said, his green eyes gleaming with interest. "And one recently used, I think." Lady Eleanor's face paled, but she said nothing. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Poirot, ever attuned to human behavior, noted her reaction. She knew more than she was letting on. Perhaps about the passage, perhaps about the scream. With a nod to Sir Reginald, who produced a pocket torch, they entered the passage. The air was damp, the walls slick with moss, and the floor sloped downward, suggesting it led to a lower level of the manor. The torch's beam cut through the darkness, illuminating cobwebs and the occasional skitter of unseen creatures. After what felt like an eternity, but was likely only a few minutes, the passage opened into a small circular chamber. In its center stood a wooden table, and on the table lay a figure, a woman, her body crumpled like a discarded doll. Her blonde hair was matted with blood, and her eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. A silver letter opener, its handle engraved, with the same thorny vine symbol Poirot had seen on the letter's wax seal, protruded from her chest. Miss Duval screamed, a sound that rivaled the one that had drawn them here. Dr. Whitmore retched, turning away, while Sir Reginald swore under his breath. Langston, predictably, remained impassive, though his fingers twitched as if itching to act. Lady Eleanor stepped forward, her face a mask of horror. It's Margaret," she whispered, "my maid." Poirot knelt beside the body, his movements precise despite the grim scene. He examined the wound, the position of the letter opener, the state of the woman's clothing. "She has been dead perhaps an hour," he said. "The blood is still wet, but beginning to congeal. The blow was swift, delivered with force. This was no accident." "But who?" Sir Reginald demanded, his voice hoarse. "Who would do this?" "That, mon ami, is the question," Poirot said, rising. He turned to Lady Eleanor. "Madame, you said this wing was closed off. Yet your maid was here, and now she is dead. Why was she in this place?" Lady Eleanor's eyes flickered, but she met his gaze. I don't know. Margaret was loyal, discreet. She often ran errands for me, but I gave her no task tonight." Poirot's moustache quivered. He did not believe her, but now was not the time to press. Instead, he surveyed the chamber, noting its stark simplicity. The table, a single chair, and a small wooden box in the corner, its lid ajar. He crossed to it, lifting the lid fully. Inside was a collection of papers, letters, maps, and what appeared to be a journal, all bearing the thorny vine symbol. "These," he said, holding up the journal, "may hold answers, but we must proceed with care. A murderer walks among us, and they will not hesitate to strike again." The group retreated to the library, the weight of the discovery pressing heavily on them. Poirot instructed Sir Reginald to guard the passage's entrance, while he and Langston carried Margaret's body to a nearby guest room, covering her with a sheet. The act was grim, but necessary. Poirot would not leave her in that cold, hidden chamber. Back in the drawing-room, the atmosphere was thick with suspicion. Miss Duval, her composure fraying, demanded to know why they couldn't simply leave. "This place is cursed," she cried. "We're all in danger." "Cursed or not," Poirot said, his voice cutting through her hysteria, "we cannot leave until the truth is uncovered. To flee now is to let a killer go free." Dr. Whitmore, still pale, cleared his throat. But how do we even begin? We don't know who this woman was to anyone, or why she was killed." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "On the contrary, Doctor, we know much already. Margaret was not a random victim. She was in a hidden chamber, killed with a weapon bearing a specific symbol. This suggests purpose, planning, and the papers we found, they will tell us more." He turned to Lady Eleanor. "Madame, I must ask, what is the significance of the thorny vine? It appears on your letter to me on the murder weapon on the papers. It is no coincidence." Lady Eleanor hesitated, then sighed. "It is the crest of the Blackthorn family, or rather, a variation of it. My late husband, Lord Alistair, was fascinated by our lineage. He created a private seal, one he used for sensitive matters. I used it on your letter to ensure you'd know it was from me." "And the chamber?" Poirot pressed. "The papers? I don't know," she insisted, but her voice wavered. "Alistair had secrets, even from me. That chamber, it must have been his." Poirot nodded, filing away her words. She was hiding something, but he would unravel it in time. For now, he distributed tasks. Dr. Whitmore was to catalogue the papers, Sir Reginald to secure the manor's exits, and Miss Duval to assist Lady Eleanor in calming the staff, who had been roused by the commotion. Langston, at Poirot's request, agreed to help him examine the library for further clues. As the group dispersed, Poirot lingered, his mind racing. The murder was no isolated act. It was tied to Lady Eleanor's cryptic warning about a 20-year-old crime. The thorny vine, the hidden chamber, the gathered guests, each was a thread in a tapestry of deceit. And somewhere, in the shadows of Blackthorn Manor, a killer watched, waiting for their next move. The night was far from over, and Poirot knew the real danger was only beginning. Chapter 3. The Enigmatic Host. The drawing-room at Blackthorn Manor was a study in contrasts, opulent yet oppressive, its high ceiling quivering slightly as he took her measure. "Madame, it is an honour. Your invitation was most intriguing." Her smile was tight, almost brittle. "I hope you will find the reality as compelling as the promise. Please come inside. The others are waiting." "Others?" Poirot's tone was mild, but his mind was already racing. The letter had mentioned nothing of a gathering. "Yes," Lady Eleanor said, leading him through the heavy oak doors into a grand foyer. A chandelier glittered overhead, casting prisms of light across the marble floor. "I have invited a small group of guests, each with a unique perspective on the matter at hand. I believe you will find them illuminating." As they ascended a sweeping staircase, Poirot's senses were on high alert. The manor was opulent, yet there was an air of decay beneath the surface. Faded tapestries, a faint mustiness in the air, the creak of floorboards underfoot. It was a house with secrets, he thought, and he was determined to uncover them. They entered a drawing-room where 4 other guests were already assembled. Lady Eleanor introduced them with practised ease, though Poirot noted the undercurrents of tension in their interactions. There was Sir Reginald Thorne, a retired colonel, with a booming voice and a penchant for whisky. Miss Clara Duval, a French actress whose beauty was matched only by her sharp wit. Dr. Henry Whitmore, a nervous-looking scholar with ink-stained fingers, and Mr. Victor Langston, a businessman whose tailored suit and cold smile suggested a man accustomed to power. Each greeted Poirot with varying degrees of warmth, but none offered any hint as to why they were there. The conversation was polite, stilted, as though each were waiting for the other to reveal too much. Poirot, ever the observer, said little, his eyes moving from face to face, cataloguing every glance, every gesture. Dinner was announced, and the group moved to a dining room, dominated by a long mahogany table. The meal was exquisite. Roast pheasant, delicate asparagus, a velvety red wine. but Poirot's attention was elsewhere. Lady Eleanor, seated at the head of the table, seemed to be watching her guests as closely as he was. Halfway through the meal, she rose, her expression grave. "My friends," she said, her voice cutting through the murmur of conversation, "you are all here for a reason, though I have not yet shared it. Tonight, we will confront a truth that has been buried for far too long, a truth that threatens us all." The room fell silent. Poirot's pulse quickened, though his face remained impassive. Here, at last, was the heart of the mystery. 20 years ago, Lady Eleanor continued, a crime was committed in this very house. A crime that was never solved, never punished. But the past, it seems, is not content to remain buried. Someone among us knows the truth, and someone among us is willing to kill to keep it hidden. A gasp rippled through the room. Sir Reginald's glass clattered to the table. Miss Duval's hand flew to her throat. Dr. Whitmore paled, and Mr. Langston's eyes narrowed to slits. Poirot leaned back in his chair, his mind alight with possibilities. A crime, a secret, a gathering of strangers with hidden motives. This was a puzzle worthy of his talents. But as Lady Eleanor's words hung in the air, a scream echoed from somewhere deep within the manor, sharp and terrified, cutting through the night like a blade. Chapter 2. Arrival at Blackthorn Manor. The scream still echoed in Hercule Poirot's ears as the dining-room erupted into chaos. Sir Reginald Thorne lurched to his feet, his ruddy face flushed with alarm, knocking over his wine-glass in the process. The scarlet liquid spread across the pristine tablecloth like a blood-stain, a grim omen that set Poirot's nerves on edge. Miss Clara Duval clutched her pearl necklace, her eyes wide with theatrical horror, while Dr. Henry Whitmore fumbled with his spectacles, muttering incoherently. Only Mr. Victor Langston remained composed, his cold grey eyes scanning the room, as if calculating the odds of an unseen threat. Lady Eleanor Blackthorne, standing at the head of the table, raised a hand for silence. "Please remain calm," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. "We must ascertain the source of that cry." "Calm?" Sir Reginald bellowed, his military bearing reasserting itself. "Someone's in distress, madam. We can't just sit here sipping wine." Poirot, ever the observer, noted the genuine fear in Sir Reginald's bluster, contrasted by Langston's unnerving stillness. He rose, smoothing his impeccable dinner jacket. "Madame," he said to Lady Eleanor, his tone measured, "if I may suggest, we should proceed together to investigate. A scream such as that, it is not to be ignored." Lady Eleanor nodded, her auburn hair glinting under the chandelier's light. "Very well, Monsieur Poirot. Let us go." The group moved as one, though their unity was uneasy, a fragile alliance bound by curiosity and dread. Poirot positioned himself near the front, his small stature belying the sharpness of his senses. The manor's grand foyer, with its marble floor and towering portraits, seemed to close in around them, as they followed the sound's likely origin, down a dimly lit corridor that branched off from the main hall. The air grew colder as they ventured deeper, the opulence of the dining-room giving way to older, less maintained parts of the house. The corridor was lined with heavy oak panels, their carvings of vines and roses worn smooth by time. Poirot's eyes darted to the details. A scuff mark on the floor, a cobweb in a corner, a faint draught that suggested an open window or door. Every clue, no matter how small, was a piece of the puzzle. The scream had come from the east wing, Lady Eleanor informed them, her voice low, as if afraid to disturb the silence that had settled in its wake. That part of the manor is rarely used," she added, glancing at Poirot. "It houses the old library and some guest rooms, but they've been closed off for years." "Closed off, yet not silent," Poirot murmured, his moustache twitching. "Curious, n'est-ce pas?" They reached a heavy door at the corridor's end, its iron hinges rusted with age. Sir Reginald, impatient, pushed it open, revealing a cavernous room that smelled of dust and mildew. The old library, as Lady Eleanor had called it, was a shadowed expanse of towering bookshelves, their contents shrouded in gloom. A single chandelier hung from the ceiling, its candles unlit, and the windows were draped with heavy velvet curtains that blocked out the moonlight. "Stay together," Lady Eleanor cautioned, but her words were barely heeded. Miss Duval, ever, the actress ventured forward, her silk gown rustling as she peered into the darkness. "Is anyone there?" she called, her voice echoing off the walls. No answer came, but Poirot's sharp ears caught a faint sound.